Welcome to the Real Room, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, John Hinton, and you are in a real place for real people to have real conversation. Where we are always relational, educational, authentic, and loving. Yo, real quick, shout out to everybody watching on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, however you're consuming your content today, thank you for stepping in the real room and getting real with us. I am excited for everyone tuning in today, stepping in the real room. I'm super excited right now because I have one of my sisters in Christ, one of my homies, one of my friends. She's amazing. And I've gotten to know her a little bit, and you guys are going to get to know her very well because she's stepping in the real room today and she's getting real with us. So without any further ado, is that how they say that? Without any further ado, I introduce and present to everyone Asia Insley.
Yes, thank you for having me on. I'm very honored to be on your podcast. I've been looking forward to it for a long time.
I'm honored. What do you mean, girl?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just excited.
I'm excited too. I'm so excited to have you here. Because I know you have a great testimony. We talked a little bit before we even started recording, and you just have an amazing testimony, and I cannot wait for you to share it. And we can listen, girl. We're in here chilling, like cold turkey chilling. We're in the real room. Yep. Okay, we're here to relate, educate, be authentic, and loving. And yeah, sister, we can go as fast as you want. Like we can start from birth. Like I was born, thrown on a table, crying, all that jazz. Or we can start in your childhood. So realistically, we're just going to be in here cold turkey chilling. I'm here to get to know you more because I've watched you from afar. For everybody who is watching, we go to church together. Like this is my sister in Christ. I've gotten to watch this woman be an amazing woman of God, just submit to God, and be an amazing mother. Yeah, you are married with 2 kids, correct? Yep. What are their names?
Maverick and Gwen.
Maverick and Gwen. I swear to you, Maverick is like a spitting image of your husband.
Yeah.
Who is Keith?
Yes.
Keith, oh my gosh. And then Gwen, she's just a little cutie that runs around church every Sunday.
Yeah. And they're like 2 completely different kids. Like she's very loving and warm and just like super sweet, and Maverick will be when he wants to be, but he's one that like if he doesn't want you talking to him, he'll say, "Don't talk to me."
Oh yeah.
And I don't know how to handle him because he's a lot different than what she is. So I'm like, I don't know what to do with this one.
Whose attitude do you think he has? Is it yours?
Oh, definitely mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he just says whatever's on his mind and he doesn't care. He's just like, don't touch me, don't hug me. I don't like to be touched. Leave me alone.
Hey, bro, that's a kid that knows his boundaries. All right,
oh, yeah.
Like he's very secure in his little person. He's I'm not gonna. Yeah, hey, I don't trust you.
Right. Yes.
But then you have Gwen, who's like a sweetheart.
Oh yeah, she's like I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and she just wants to love on everybody and all this. And like she's very. What I love about her too is like she does consider people's feelings to a point, like if she doesn't want to say something that's going to hurt somebody's feelings or whatever, but she'll tell me later like, hey mom, like I didn't like this about this person or whatever, like in a nice way though. Like she's like, I don't really like that they kept hugging me or something. I'm like, just say something. And she's like, well, I didn't want to hurt their feelings. And I'm like, oh no, if you don't want someone to hug you, you just say no thank you.
How old are they?
Gwen will be 6 next month on the 15th. Or no, March 15th.
And then Maverick is
3. He will be 4 in June.
Oh my God. Dude, you have a 3 and a 6-year-old that are just so self-aware.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah. It's just, they amaze me every day.
I could only
just
imagine.
Changed so much that I'm like, oh, okay.
Dude, that's awesome. And then Keith, how long have you and Keith been married?
We have been married for... This year will be 6 years, and then we've been together for almost 9.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I can't wait to get to that part in your testimony. But yeah, no, I'm not even gonna wait, girl. You can just start. Yeah, give us like this. All right, so let me help you out. So you already know what we do here on the Real Room.
Mm-hmm.
You're a real one. You've been rocking with us
Yep.
since the jump.
Yeah.
Which thank you, by the way.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Like you touched my whole soul. Yeah, you definitely blessed me. You're one of those people who have no problem stopping me in the morning on a Sunday or Wednesday on a life group and be like, "Hey, I'm watching your episode. It took me a couple days to finish that 3-hour episode, but I'm getting there."
It's like I will listen to it bits and pieces throughout my workday if I need to, but I'm listening.
Dope. Well, yeah, you're definitely a real one. And yeah, I just, you know what we do here, and I'm giving you the opportunity. Take this platform, tell your story, sister, and give people context to you, because I believe a lot of people will be able to relate to it, and I believe that you have something to offer that can help someone out there. So just have at it, girl.
Gotcha. I mean, I grew up like, I don't know. I guess like when I explain how I grew up to Keith, because he grew up with his parents married, they had 10 kids, he lived in like one house his whole life and everything. So he grew up a lot differently than me.
Right.
My parents got divorced when I was 3. Oh. And, there was like different types of abuse going on that I still remember, like witnessing and whatnot. So like even just them being divorced, it just like was a different like life, I guess. So my mom was a single mom, was always working and stuff. And I mean, kudos to her, because I'm like, I couldn't even imagine doing it by myself. It's hard as it is.
Dude, them working women, like them mothers.
But it's, like my dad, like we're on like better terms now, but like, he was kind of in and out and he had his problems. Like my mom had her problems and stuff too. And like she didn't have like a lot of boyfriends or whatever, but just like a couple throughout like my childhood, and then got married to one of them when I was in high school. But the guy that she married, we did not get along. So like I didn't really like grow up with that consistent like father figure in my life.
Gotcha.
And so like I don't know what that's like. Like I have friends that their parents are still married, or they're like, "Oh, my parents are my best friends," and all this. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get along with my parents for the most part, but I'm just like, I would think it would be weird to have them both in the same house, because they still, after all these years, like they're not even in the same room together, like ever. Like they don't talk or anything.
No way. Like your mom and the dude she's married to now?
Oh, they ended up getting divorced, but my mom and my dad.
Okay, so your mom and your actual dad. So they
and like they've never really had to be in the same room together, because like when I graduated high school, like my dad and I didn't really talk. Keith and I didn't end up having like an actual like full-on wedding. We went to the mayor's office in Findlay and just had it like my mom, his parents, and then my grandparents. So like there was never like a reception that like they had to be in the same room together or do any of that stuff together. So it's always been that for me. But like then I see how Keith is, and like his parents were, I mean, they were married.
Yeah.
Like, he had the
picture perfect thing.
Yes. So it was just like I grew up so differently than him. And then I guess it really helped me decide like what kind of mom I wanted to be.
Gotcha.
Even though I didn't really see myself, I didn't know if I wanted to have kids. And then like kind of when I met Keith, and then we, got serious and stuff, then I was like, okay, maybe I do want to be married one day and have kids. But I think not that I would say that them being divorced was like the super traumatic thing, because I don't know really any different.
Right.
But it really made me like careful of who I chose to create a life with.
Oh, for sure. Like it impacted you.
Yes. And then like, so I just wanted to make sure like whoever I'm going to spend my life with and have kids with, like, I want to know what their character is and everything like that, because I did not want my kids to ever not have a parent present or have like 2 different houses. And my parents never really got along. So they would like, say if my mom grounded me, then I'd go over to my dad's house and he would be like, well, we're going to do the opposite. Like he wanted to be the cool parent.
I got
So,
you.
and as a kid, I'm like, cool.
Right.
But like now
okay,
I'm just
Dad.
like, okay, it was just like competition between, it was just
Right.
to
It was
make my mom
unhealthy.
mad. And it was just very unhealthy. And I just didn't want my kids to ever have drama like that. I'm like, oh my goodness, if I can't find somebody that is worth like making a life with, then I'm like, I'll just solo it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I know, I got you.
But like, and then, I mean, I know like my mom like tried the best that she could, but like there was also like some mental health issues and like just some issues that went on like as a kid, as like I got older. And like some of these things like she doesn't even know about. Like I don't talk about it. So like, and I'm not even going to put names in here because it's just like, you know what? I've forgiven people
Right.
and I'm
Yeah, we
not
don't
trying
need
to
to
like
name
using
drop
it
or
as
anything like
like,
that.
yeah, because I'm not trying to put anyone's names down, but like I also want to be honest because there's other people that have gone through these things that it's like, it's not commonly talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, if I could help somebody and be like, hey, someone's been through the same thing, but your life doesn't have to be determined by that. But like I had been like abused like sexually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and all those things like multiple times throughout the years. And those things like were super traumatizing to me. And at that time, like I like believed there was a God, but like I didn't know God. And like I didn't grow up in church. Like we would be in and out of church a little bit. Like we'd go for a few months and then we'd be out of church for like a year or whatever. So like I always just buried that stuff inside. And as like I grew older, it just made me super bitter and like closed off.
Oh, I could imagine.
So like like I know it's very common that people get sexually abused and people don't talk about it. And then they feel like that like defines who they are. And like they feel like, oh, I'm dirty and like no one's going to want me or whatever. But I think the good that came out of that, and that's such a weird thing to say, but it made me somebody that like, even though people I hung out around or what was common when I was in high school or whatever, like a lot of people like slept around and where they go to a party and then they just sleep with somebody and then they just go to school with them the next Monday or whatever and act like it didn't happen. They're like, oh, whatever. And like, and no judgment to those people because, that's their business. I can sit there and say like, I'll pray for whatever that void is in you or whatever. But like, it made me not like that. Like did I make mistakes? Yes. But I also wasn't somebody that just like blended in with everybody else and wanted to do that. Like when you experience like abuse like that, like you don't either. I feel like you want to be super closed off and you're very protective of your body, or then there's some people that just do the opposite. I feel like, I think the good that came out of like sexual abuse for me was that I didn't just open my body up to the public.
Right.
And it was just something that protected me, I guess, because like I went to school with people that would, they got pregnant or, something happened or whatever. But I guess that kind of shaped me into like the teenager and adult that I was, of like not having to like go to random guys to have, a few minutes of feeling like loved or whatever.
Right. Try to help the numbness or the hurt fill that void.
Yeah. But I think the thing that some people don't talk about is it affects my marriage sometimes, or at least it used to. Like you just look at things differently. Like, I don't know. It's hard to like explain. And then I also think it's helped me like as a mom that I open up that communication, because I didn't have that communication with my mom. And I'm sure it would be awkward. I don't know, like, how do you talk about that with a kid? There's not an owner's manual to parenting.
No.
So it's hard
ever.
to like know how to bring that up. But like if, my kids go to like a new babysitter or something, like I'm always telling them like if something goes on and something happens that you're not comfortable with, like you can always let me know. Like I always make sure my kids know they can tell me anything.
It's good.
And I'm not going to go back to that person and say, hey, well, Gwen told me this or Maverick told me that. Like I'm not going to sit there and do that, but I'll address it. I'm going to stand up for my kids. But like I don't want them to ever feel like they can't tell me something, because I went through my entire childhood like just keeping a lot of things to myself.
I got you.
So
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So you said a lot, and I'm just super curious, and I'm wondering where the Holy Spirit's going to take this, because this is great already.
I don't know either. I'm wondering as I'm talking. I don't know.
So I'm curious, because I'm a uncle of 4 kids. I've raised a few kids for a few years in my life before. Like I've had parenting experience, and then I also watch other parents. Like oh my gosh, there's so many people in this world who are who I have relationship with that I get to watch be parents. I'm just like, yo, you were really doing it.
Yeah.
Like, go get it. Like these kids are smart, they're educated, they're well-rounded, they're self-aware.
Yeah.
You're one of those parents.
Thank you.
So I really want to know your opinion on, or if you do this. So do you, with your open line of communication with your children, do you give them like, I don't know how to say this, like child names or baby names or play names with their private parts?
That is interesting that you asked me that, because just a few days ago when I was like giving Gwen a shower, I started using the appropriate name, because if anything ever happens and say someone ever did anything to her, then if we ever needed to go to court or anything or like talk to somebody, like she's using the appropriate names. Because I feel like if I give it a different nickname, like that's not like definitive, and I feel like then she wouldn't like get the justice that she deserves, because she's not using the proper names, and it could be swayed one way or the other. Of like, well, she might not be talking about that. Like I want her to know, so that way if something ever happened to her, she can tell me specifically where or what. Yeah,
absolutely. And let's be real, the devil's crafty. Like people are out here like playing the game and using the names with these children. And they don't know any better. I mean, they're trying to trust people, and they're getting taken advantage of. That's where it's like, even with this whole parenting dynamic in 2024, like, I mean, it's been going on for a while, but like we were raised to have stranger danger, but yet at the same time, I'm not going to act like I know the percentages, but usually it wasn't a stranger that you got sexually assaulted by.
Oh yeah,
it was like a family member or someone super close, and they knew what they needed to know to play the game with the kids, and it would get brushed under the rug because, I mean, we lived in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Let's not talk about our trash. Like especially in the church, and that's where it's just gone unnoticed or unannounced, and we don't deal with those things, so it's causing us to keep secrets that aren't ours to keep growing up.
Right. And like the people that I got molested by as a child were family members, and they were family members that I was around often. And I understand how people would be like, because Keith asked me this question of like, if you were being molested by, this family member, my cousin, like, but yet it was like my favorite cousin for some reason. But it wasn't like, I don't even think I registered that, like, how wrong whatever it was. Like, I guess I didn't even really understand it. But like, this person was like my older cousin, and I guess I kind of like looked up to them. Like, they had parents that let them do whatever they wanted, and I had like a stricter mom. So like I was like, oh, they're so cool, they can just do whatever they want, kind of thing. And I think that's why I liked to go over to that house, is just because like then their parents would just not care what I did, and I'm like, oh, I have so much freedom. But But yeah, like it was done by family members. And then when I was 15, like I was raped by a boyfriend of mine that I was dating. But like I didn't like register until I was older because I never really had like a conversation of, you know, what is considered rape. And I just compared it to like in movies. And like sometimes, you know, rape is how the movies are, but sometimes it's not. You know, if you
Right.
say no and you consistently say no to somebody and they do it anyway, that's still rape. And I
Yeah.
didn't know that. And I never got to tell anybody that because, um, where my mom, because I think she had said something to me of like, she made like a remark, like trying to hint if I had been sexually active with him. And what I had said was, well, I didn't want to. And then of course, everyone like freaked out.
Oh
And
yeah.
like, I didn't get to tell my part of it of like, let me explain how this all went down. Because then I kind of felt like my opportunity to explain that got gypped from me. And then I had to just be quiet and like not say anything because it was already assumed that I was just going around, you know, just sleeping
No.
around or something. So like I mean, my mom will probably watch this and then figure it out. But it's like, you know, I talked to a counselor about it, like my husband and, you know, pastor when I did some counseling or whatever. But like I always like kept that down. And I think that was part of the reason why my mom and I had a difficult relationship too, along with multiple other things. But because I kind of resented her. But at the same time, as I've gotten older, I can't sit here and be mad at her
Right.
and hold grudges towards her about something that she doesn't know. And we're all human. And I mean, I don't know how I'll react if my daughter ever came to me and said that she was sexually active before she got married, let alone at 15. So it's like, I have to understand what was going through her mind too. And that she most likely did not purposely cut me off and not want me to
Oh, yeah, 'cause
talk about
she's
it.
freaking out because she doesn't know what to do.
Yeah. And I don't think she expected that answer from me. And so for so many years, I was just so angry with her. And like, we just don't have like a normal relationship. And I know God one day will repair what needs to be
Oh,
repaired.
absolutely.
I mean, it's
Amen.
already being repaired as we speak, but it was just a lot of things I held against her that she just didn't know.
I got
We need to give grace to people sometimes.
you.
Like
Girl,
most times, you know, she's
absolutely.
human. And I was so mad at her for so long about something that she didn't even know about.
But you were trying, I think if I could, you were trying to figure it out just like she was trying to figure it out. Cause I'm curious, like growing up, so she was raising you alone and then sometimes you would go to dad's house.
Yeah.
Did you have any siblings real quick?
I have one full sibling that my mom and dad also had together, but my mom recently adopted a younger girl. And then my dad has a herd of children.
A herd of children.
So,
Whole
yeah.
basketball team or something. I got
Yeah,
you.
because you know Destiny, but I also
Yeah.
have multiple other siblings too. Like my dad has a total of 8 kids, and then my mom, including me and that sister that she adopted 3. So
I got you. Well, I was just curious because like growing up, I'm seeing, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm seeing a lack or a disconnect. Like you and your mom aren't getting along, or at least maybe you're not talking. Like the whole family dynamic, the home is broken.
yeah.
So is she just like working all the time and you're like
Yeah, she
just
was
staying at
trying to
home?
keep just trying to make ends meet. Like when we were younger, we would be at like a babysitter's. We had a daycare at one point that was across the street from her job, or you know, occasionally my grandparents would help, but you know, everyone in my family is really young. So my grandparents were young when they became grandparents, that
Right.
they're still trying to live their life too. So, but like she worked a lot and she worked as an STNA, and then you know she did multiple job titles at that place of work and whatnot. Then she was medical records or whatever. But there was a lot of times that she worked a lot because she was just making sure that we had everything we needed. Like we never went without. I can definitely say that.
Right.
But like she definitely worked hard, and I know she would have loved to be home more. But it's like she just had to do what she had to do.
Oh no, I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
My mom was a working woman as well.
Yeah.
And because my dad died when I was 6.
Right.
So growing up, I know what it's like to have a mom that cares, maybe doesn't know how to express it. And when she
Yes.
does, it usually comes out wrong. because I'm uneducated. I'm just trying to know how to be a human
Right.
being,
Yeah.
and she's struggling to raise two boys
Mm-hmm.
and teach them all the things that a father should teach them,
Right.
and then also while working her life away, pretty much working her body
Yeah.
and mind and soul to death just to
Mm-hmm.
raise her children. So then when she comes back into the home, it's kind of like, why are things going wrong? Like I'm trying to do
Yeah.
things right and
Yeah.
trying to do things to the best of my ability, and then things are going wrong because the lack of having her there is what caused me to go out and get into trouble, because I was uneducated and I was swayed by outside
Right.
influences. And I could definitely relate to you with that.
Yeah. We just got to learn that our parents are also humans trying to figure it
Girl,
out.
preach it.
And that we just need to have a little bit of grace. Um, and I don't really like to say the like cliche saying of they tried the best they could, because that doesn't always fit everyone's
No.
situation. There are some people that I'm like, you got to at least try
Yeah,
like a
you're using
little.
it as a cop out.
Yeah. So like, but then there are some situations where it's like people make mistakes. I make mistakes. Other parents make mistakes. And it's like, you have to learn how to forgive. And it doesn't mean that whatever happened is okay,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, let yourself move on. Because most of the time, like, we don't need people to tell us what they did or didn't do to hurt us. Like, we already know that. So why do we feel like we need to have them say it to us?
Right.
I'm all for like telling them, hey, like when this happened, that really hurt me or made me feel this way. But it's like, there's plenty of things I've done in my life that I'm not proud of that I wouldn't want thrown in my face. And
Right.
then like, I think about how many times I've thrown things into my parents' face that, they just didn't make good decisions sometimes, like anyone else. And you just got to move on and not let it just like fester for years. Cause I did for years. Like, it was just awful, like to hold on to something like that.
So how was your experience holding on to that? Because I'm sure with already there being a disconnect within the home, now you're kind of going through all these, they're not kind of, you are going through all these things growing up, and it's causing you to build this wall of resentment. So not only is there a disconnect, now there's a separation completely.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like you're building like the walls of your own mental and emotional prison cell.
Mm-hmm.
And keeping these secrets and experiencing all these things that a young girl has no reason experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that have like an effect on you, like growing up in a sense of like acting out or like getting in trouble and stuff like that? Because I mean, if she's not around, like what are you doing growing up?
I was not really one to get in trouble at school or anything. I had a strict mom, so I'm just like, if I get in trouble at school, I'm going to be in even more trouble when I get home. Like, she did not play. But as far as like, I would get really mouthy with her. And even as an adult, sometimes I can't say that I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have this time or that time. Because sometimes I'm like, okay, you just really weren't treating me right. And I kind of was just standing up for myself. Or if there was someone else in my life that, wasn't treating me right, then I would be like, you don't need to talk to me like that. But,
Right.
To an adult, it's like, why are you talking back to me? Like back in my day, we didn't talk to our parents like that.
Smack
And it's just
you.
like, no, but I had boundaries. And there's been so many times throughout my life where I had boundaries and I lacked boundaries and had boundaries again. But I think as far as it went to both my parents, I would act out to them because I just said whatever I wanted to say to them, even though there's consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And it caused a lot of, like, my mom really struggled with me because my brother, like, if she said to do something, he's doing it. He's not talking back. Like, when she dated the man that she eventually married, like, him and I did not get along. So then I would just sit there and be like, I don't need to listen to him. I don't like the way he talks to me. And I don't know. There was at some point where he had moved back in with us or something like that. And he said something about get out of my kitchen. And I was like, you don't even pay any bills here, dude. And like, so I was that kid that you're like, I don't even know what to do with this child because she just has no filter.
Unruly.
And I literally, the fact that you even say unruly, eventually, because of those things, my mom had me put on a diversion program. Do you know what the diversion program is?
All right, so I'm familiar, but I want to know your experience in the diversion program.
Yeah, so she had me into the diversion program for being unruly. So I had like so many hours I had to do for community service as like a punishment.
Oh, God.
But I never ended up finishing it because my mom and I got into like an altercation.
Oh, gosh.
And I'm not really going to go into it because it's still a very touchy subject, but
Right.
either way, there was about a million better solutions to the issue. But we got in a disagreement, which resulted in her calling the cops on me. And even though if I wasn't on the diversion program, I don't think I would have got arrested. But because I was on the diversion program, I believe they contacted like the person that's in charge of my community service and stuff. And
Did you have a PO? Like probation officer?
I had one, but I wasn't technically on
Gotcha.
probation. It was
just
so
somebody to look over
weird. Yeah, like I wasn't on probation, but I had probation.
It's kind of like they were like trying to be like, "Hey, you're about to get in trouble.
Yeah, like
so
you're
we're
almost
here.
there, so we're just like warning, hello." But because I was on that program after this altercation, long story short, I bit my mom. Okay, so. Yeah. I was 12, okay?
No,
so let's just go into this.
Listen, this is a past.
And because I broke a little bit of skin and caused a little bit of blood, like just like as if you scraped yourself, you know what I mean?
I'm pretty sure you didn't
I
like
did
take
that,
a chunk out.
No,
like,
I didn't take
her,
no
though.
chunk. I mean, but there were teeth marks.
Where'd you bite her?
Her finger. So, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, we gotta backtrack because this is gonna be so confusing.
No, I hear you. And you can, all right, listen, you can be as real as you want, but I know you want to, I get it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make anyone look bad. I'm just
No,
trying to like
absolutely
say
not.
the actual
But this is your
conversation.
experience,
Yes.
and this is what you went through.
And I'm going to be real about it.
yeah.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I also
we're
don't
real
want
people,
to
girl.
be like, oh, Asia just used this podcast to just throw people under the bus.
No,
Like,
absolutely.
no.
If you think that, you're tuning into the wrong podcast.
Yes,
Go make your
yes.
clips somewhere else.
Yeah, if you want something sugarcoated, go get a donut because it's not going to happen here.
Girl, I love you so much right now. Yeah. But all right, so I'll give you a little piece. I've bit a few people in my day, so go ahead.
Okay, so with like I said, I would like argue and like fight back, not even always physically, but obviously with the situation was physically,
right.
but like as far as being mouthy and stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, there was some abuse going on, and I felt like it was like my word against an adult's word, and like I was looked at as like I was over exaggerating and all that, so like nothing ever really came of it. And I got to a point where I was so sick of it that like I just like didn't even want to live anymore. I was just like, I'm so done with this. I feel like trapped and I have nowhere else to go. Like I'm stuck dealing with this environment, and everything that I say like seems to not matter, and it gets overlooked. And, you know, if I come out and say my side of it, then it's, oh, Asia's so dramatic. You know, she didn't get her way about this or that. So I got to a point that I got deeply depressed. And then my mom and I got in an argument one night, and I can't remember what she said to me, but I said, well, you won't have to worry about that for much longer. And she's like, well, what does that mean? Because I was like, because I won't be here anymore. And she knew what I meant by that. So the next day she took me out of school, said I had an appointment. And I was like, oh, I didn't know I had no doctor's appointment. No, she took me to Family Resource Center, and they like evaluated me. I can't remember everything they asked me, but then they ended up saying that I needed to be admitted to Toledo's Children's Hospital on the psych unit.
Okay.
So I was there, and then I can't remember how many days I was supposed to be there. It wasn't supposed to be long, but I was doing good up until like my mom, we did like a meeting with like the doctor or somebody, and then like my mom was supposed to be there, and I did not react well to her being there because like I wasn't over what happened.
Yeah.
And I knew like I'm going to go back to the same thing that was going on before. So then they're like, oh, she's not ready to go home. She's got to stay a little bit longer. So it was like a total of like, like 2 weeks. And I wasn't sleeping. I was deeply depressed, but like I just wasn't sleeping. So when I was there, they prescribed me medication to help me sleep, which I did not know this. And I don't know for sure because I don't know what the script was or whatever, but just by the look of what the pill was. And then now that I'm a nurse and I administer medications, right. So I found this out as an adult, and which led to like a meltdown in the middle of my shift because I recognized the pill and then knew what I was on.
Oh.
But I'm almost positive it was Ambien. So when I was first on it, it would knock me out. Like a half hour after I take it, it would knock me out. So once I finally got back home, I mean, it wasn't even a week. Like my dad was supposed to come pick us up for the weekend, and he was late, and he kind of normally was. I can't even talk crap about it because I am one that's always late. So I'm not putting them down on that. But my mom would kind of be a little, I don't know, you're 1 minute late, you're not taking them.
Right.
And that's what happened on that Friday before Memorial Day. And so I was upset. Like we were supposed to go like to a lake or something. And I was so excited. I'm like, he's already here. Like we're not doing anything this weekend. Like, let me just go with him. And they were arguing. She's like, you're not going. So I got upset and I started throwing a fit. And like we got in this altercation or whatever. She told me to take my medicine. And I'm like, I'm not taking it at 7:00 at night on a Friday. Like, and I knew it was going to knock me out. And I'm like, I don't have to go to school tomorrow or nothing.
I want to take a nap.
I just want to like be up. Like, I don't need to take it right now. And then like, she was one that, you know, I better do as she says. And I wasn't doing it. So we started, you know, having an altercation, and she was trying to put it in my mouth. So I bit her finger. And so I bit her finger hard enough because I have a couple sharp teeth, my little shark teeth. And so I drew blood, and she's like, nope, I'm calling the cops. So there was like different ways that could have been handled.
Oh, yeah.
But
on
because I did
part.
that, then they they called my diversion program person or whatever, asked like, what do we do? And they're like, go ahead and take her. And I think it's because it was a Friday. She didn't want to be bothered. And like, lady, you just sent me to the most traumatizing experience.
Just
you
to
know
get
what
a
I mean?
weekend off.
Like, just take me to my grandparents for the weekend. Let me cool off or something.
Right.
But yeah, so I was there Friday night. And then I had court Tuesday. And this was like just a traumatizing experience. I can't even remember a lot of it. But I remember when my mom came to visit me, it did not go well again. I didn't want to talk to her. And I was just like, no.
How old are you right now?
How old am I right now?
No, not right now, but like in this experience.
I was 12. So this all happened like because I was on the psych ward. Yeah. And then a week later, I get arrested. And then when I went to court, you know, I didn't know they were going to have me in like this orange like jumpsuit with handcuffs on my hands and feet and everything. And I have naturally curly hair. They don't care about that in JDC, okay? No. So I had a frisball hair. Like my hair looked a mess. I looked wrecked. I looked wrecked.
Oh, yeah.
You would have thought I was like on something monster. Probably. Like, what is this girl doing? Like, she looked like
Of course she bit someone's finger. Look at her.
It looked like I had rabies or something, like some feral cat out there. But so when the judge gave permission for me to not have to go back, thank God my grandparents showed up, because apparently when I was in JDC, they had called to talk to me. And I think if I remember correctly, my mom kind of kept putting it off. And then my grandma was like, what's going on here? Like, Why can't I talk to Asia? And then she ended up telling her what happened. And my grandparents flipped out. Like, why didn't you just bring her over here? This could have been avoided, whatever. But thank God that they showed up, because if they did not show up, I was already lined up to go to a foster home.
What?
Yes.
At 12?
Yes. So like they weren't going to let me go back to with my mom. And my dad had already had children taken away from a previous marriage, like because he was, you know, whatever. He had made mistakes and he was already determined to be unfit. So if my grandparents would not have shown up, I would have been in a foster home for at least 6 months, because they had custody of me for 6 months. And then we did like supervised visits with my mom with like a social worker every so often or whatever. Yeah, mind blown, huh? Yeah.
Hold up.
That was an interesting summer between school.
Oh, yeah.
I was surprised I made it to the next grade because I was barely there. Psych ward 1 week, 2 weeks, and the next week going to JDC, and it's like, okay.
And then they're keeping you there. They're not releasing you back to your mom.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, you know, you're actually going to go live with some strangers.
Yeah. And that would have terrified me, because I'm very...
Oh, my gosh, bro.
I mean, I had already experienced, like, abuse and sexual abuse before, but, like, you know, my mom didn't know those things. Like, no one knew.
Yeah.
So, like, I would have been scared out of my mind, because, like, I have siblings that had went through foster care, and they had been abused in every way possible in those foster homes. So it's like, yeah, there are some good foster parents out there, and then there are some that
aren't that
No,
good. They're just
you're
getting a
probably better
check.
off in your original situation.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Didn't see that one coming, did you?
I did not.
I always shock everybody with it. It's funny it's not funny, but it's interesting to watch people's facial expressions when I do tell.
Dude, first off, thank you
You're welcome.
for just your transparency, your
I'm an
vulnerability.
open book.
Dude, I love you.
Yes,
And oh my gosh, so why I'm like just tripping out right now is I can see a 12-year-old girl who has been through some traumatizing experiences.
Yeah.
And then she is just, it's like you're in this prison and you're asking for help, but you don't know how to ask for help.
Yeah.
And the people who are close to you that, one, you need help from, and two, you feel they're supposed to be helping you. You're asking them for help, but they don't have the information to help you. Yeah. And then at the same time, it's causing this whole lack of help is causing you to freak out. And then you feel like you can't vocalize what you've been through. So you're holding on to a secret that you shouldn't be holding on to, secrets at this point.
Yeah.
And the people you're desiring help from aren't helping you. And then it's literally everything's bubbling to the surface and you're like, I'm done.
Yeah. Because I didn't see any other way out of it. And I was 12. So I'm just like, I got 6 more years that I got to deal with this. And it's just like, I was just like, I'm done.
And it's getting dismissed.
Yes.
Like they're just dismissing it all.
And I had thought about it several times actually throughout my childhood, even prior to this. And actually, besides her taking me to that place, prior to that, there was another time that I just wanted to like just end my life. Like I was just like, I'm just done. Like I'm so exhausted. I don't want to live like this. And Destiny was just a baby. And that was honestly, and she does not even know this. She'll know when she watches this. But I would say it was God, maybe, and I didn't recognize it at the time, but like reminded me, like, do you want her to grow up hearing about you, of a sister she did have, and just a few pictures that she would have as like with me and her as a baby? Right. Or do you want to be here and actually know what kind of person she's going to be one day? And that was like really what stuck. Like I didn't think about how my parents were going to feel. I didn't think about my grandparents. I didn't think about my future life. Because at this point, like I felt so like low about myself that like I never thought that anyone would ever want to marry me one day or anything. Like I felt so low about myself. Right. And partially because there were people that would speak things like that over me and I would just kind of believe them. But yeah, I guess just the thought of my sister growing up and the only version she would know of me is whatever someone told her. And obviously at this point, there's a lot of bad things someone could have told her and she could have had a whole different image of who I was. Right. And I don't know what it was about that just was like, no, you just can't do that. Because that's just like, I just didn't want her growing up just hearing about me. I wanted to know what she's going to be like one day and us actually have a relationship one day. Right. So
I'm going to tell you right now, I know that was God.
Yeah.
Dude, that was God. He was planting a seed of life in you. Like, nah, there's going to be more than what you see in front of you.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that I never acted on it because then I wouldn't have gotten married one day. I wouldn't have had my kids. I wouldn't have become a nurse like I always dreamed of. I would not have the beautiful life that I have. And I am just like so thankful every day that I'm like, thank you, God, for like pushing me through it. Because like there's no other way I would have gotten through it. Like I went through a lot of hard times, but it's like, you know what? I could have been somebody that was in and out of jail for the rest of my life. I could have, slept around with a bunch of people and carried a bunch of diseases or something, or had, a bunch of kids by a bunch of random people or something. But I was just like, like, I just know that was not God's plan for my life. And there were some people that I remember that would kind of make remarks that like they probably thought I would take it as a compliment, and I did not. like on my birthday one year, I had one of my mom's friends say like, "Happy birthday. I'm so proud of the woman that you've become. I was so nervous as you were growing up and I just saw you going down the wrong road and I'm so glad you got back on the right track." And I'm sitting there like, you don't even
Oh
know
my
the
God.
situation. But I was painted as like this out of control kid, which in some situations, yeah, but it's like you guys don't know the whole story.
Right.
It's like I was just trying to stand up for myself because no
Mm-hmm.
one else was.
Girl.
So I cringe when people say that stuff to
Oh,
me because I was like,
absolutely.
how dare you even speak on something that you know nothing about?
Like,
You know one side of the story. You weren't there. And then like when I got out of JDC, it's like no one wanted to talk about it. Like, oh, just stop talking about it. It's like, okay, I'm the one that just lived through
yeah.
that. So because it's hard for someone else to talk about it, I don't care if it's hard for you to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I lived it. I needed to get out and talk about it, but I really got shut down. So years later, I was still like, I don't know, like I don't have a normal connection with my parents. Like, yes, I love them. I would never want anything like bad to happen to them or anything. But like people that are like, oh, my parents are my best friends and they're the first person I go to when I get good news or bad news or whatever. And I'm just like, not me. I mean, I
Right.
love my parents,
Uh,
but it's like it's a stretch to say they're my best friend.
oh, I'm sure.
It's like we tolerate each other and there's sometimes like, yes, I enjoy being around them, but then I get to a point where I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to go back to my house, and there always has to be some distance. Like there's kind of like a partial wall
Mm-hmm.
up. But I would say ever since that, I started to build a relationship with God, that wall has slowly started coming down, and I'm not throwing things in their face all the time because it was just like always like, well, you did this to me. And especially once I got pregnant with Gwen, because even though Gwen wasn't even here yet and she was just in the womb, it just like all those feelings resurfaced because I kept shoving them down for so many years. But then I guess like once I like already loved this child so much that I haven't even held yet, I'm
Right.
just like, how can in the world can you and my dad do the things that you guys did? Like, because like I just love this child already. I couldn't even imagine doing that. So like I would lash out and just be very hateful out of nowhere because there's just those feelings resurfacing.
I relate to you so much.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no. Oh my gosh. Dude, I don't know what it was about when you explained your experience of those like backhanded compliments.
Mm-hmm.
Uh like for me, I can relate to it because growing up in the church, had a great mom. She
Mm-hmm.
did everything that she could have.
Right.
I would never speak against my mom. I mean, I'm glad you said it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like she did the best that she could,
Yeah.
raising two boys on her own,
Right.
working her life away. And we didn't have much growing up. And to even be raised in the church too. So then
Mm-hmm.
you bring in the church dynamic of like people having an idea of how we're supposed to be living our lives and
Right.
raising a child up in the way that they should go, and they won't
Mm-hmm.
depart from it. And I was a rebellious child. So when I would have people come up and be like, hey, I'm really glad you're doing good because I was worried about you and this and that. And like, just keep your eyes on God and this and that. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, no, like, you don't know what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And to even be a grown man now in youth ministry,
Mm-hmm.
I see that. And it's nothing against these parents at all, because I'm sure within their dynamic, within their lives and all their experiences, because ultimately a lot of them are children acting out while they're humans, or while they're adults. Like these adults have unspoken issues or trauma that hasn't been addressed.
Mm-hmm.
So they're still like the 8 or 9 year olds or the 13 year olds that went through a traumatic experience, and now they're still acting out.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're trying to raise kids doing the same thing. And I can look at the dynamic and I'm just like, can we get some counseling? Can we get some therapy? And can you please stop dismissing your child's feelings?
Mm-hmm.
Because these children, these teens, these kids, they're really going through things, and we need to validate their experience. We need to validate their feelings. And if we could make that connection, we could do like, oh my gosh, we could heal the home.
Mm-hmm.
Whether both parents are in it or not, we could heal the
Right.
home. We could bridge the communication to where we could have these safe conversations and just stop the enemy from coming in and dividing and destroying children's lives. And oh my gosh, dude. Oh,
And we as parents need to stop telling our kids, well, it could be worse. Or this is how my parents did it. It's like, okay, but that does not mean that what you're doing or not doing is not hurtful.
that part.
Like, and when you shut it down, it's like, okay, then you're going to train your kids that they can't come to you and tell you those things. And then now I'm an adult that, well, I've gotten a lot better, but it's like, I have a hard time expressing my feelings.
Yeah.
And then, like, obviously I know that my parents loved me, but I don't feel like they showed it in the way that, like, I needed them to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I have struggled sometimes even in my marriage because, like, I wasn't modeled a healthy marriage. You know, my husband grew up with two parents that very obviously loved each other and stuck by each other up until his mom passed away a couple years ago. And it's like, I don't know what that's like. That there's been times that, you know, say if Keith and I went through a rough patch like we did a few years ago, and then I was just like, okay, we're done. And we were separated for 9 months. And it's like, to him, he's like, you know, we made vows to each other.
Right.
And this was before I ever even pursued like a relationship with God. And I was just like, nope, because like what I was pretty much told growing up is like, don't depend on a man, like hold it down. Like you don't need a man for this or that. Like, you know, stand your ground and whatever, like be independent. But as I've gotten older and like as the years have gone in my marriage, it's like, you know, I understand why I was told those things, but at the same time, it's like my marriage is not my mom and dad's marriage. Completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we're going to have hard patches. And so many people these days, I think it's just the culture, I guess, of like they give up so easily.
Oh.
But it's like I didn't know how to handle when things get rough. I'm just like, peace out. See ya. Don't need ya.
Right.
And it's like that you can't do that. I mean, like if you're getting abused or something like that, then that's a lot different. But I mean, Keith relocates bugs, okay? He's not gonna touch me. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I got
So
you.
it's like that would be a whole different story. But just because you have disagreements and you don't have to agree on every single thing. There's some things that are more important than others, but it's like work your stuff out. Learn how to communicate like an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I would just like shut down and be like, I'm not talking to you. I'm done with you, whatever. And that's just because like that's what I knew, I guess. Right. But yeah, I don't know.
Dude, I definitely agree with you. I do. So I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you are right. 100%. Work your stuff out, people. Like, stop trying to fix your spouse. Fix yourself. Go get counseling. Go get therapy. Go get Jesus 100% because you can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
And it won't be done in your own power.
No.
But I do still believe in, like you said, separation when it comes to like abuse and those things. Like,
absolutely.
By all means, get out.
Especially when there's kids involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember my parents fighting and I was 3 when they got divorced. So I like the fight that I remember vividly. Like I couldn't even tell you how old I was. I mean, I was a toddler. Right. But like I still remember that stuff. So don't assume that your kids aren't going to remember the abuse that they're around or things that they hear or whatever, because I remember vividly. Mm-hmm. Like I remember the layout of the apartment we had and where I was when I was watching this stuff. So it's like I remember those things. So don't assume because your child's young that they're not going to remember, especially traumatic things they're going to remember.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Whether we want to or not, like it's an experience that like, oh gosh, why is this happening?
Oh yeah.
And that's why it's important for parents to address the issues, like address that little child that needs help, that's lashing out for help and trying to look to their spouse to fix them. I know Pauline and I have gone through that before, and we're going through it right now, and we're trying to fix ourselves and help each other through that experience. And we're not going to get it perfect, but if you have two people working towards one goal, then nothing is impossible. Right. But if you're in those environments where it's just unhealthy and it's toxic, get out. And then I do also believe though that we did make vows.
Mm-hmm.
100%. When you get married, you make vows. And if you believe in what marriage truly is to be a covenant and you make those vows, you're committed to those vows. Now, I'm not saying that those vows are to keep you prisoner to a home.
Right.
I believe very much in the nuclear family and living all in the same home. If you're married and you have kids and all that jazz. I also understand that if a man's acting a fool, maybe we need to design or create a separation period to where it's like, hey, you need some alone time. Like you need to go get alone and deal with this thing with God and with a community of men, or even on a woman's side, go and be alone. Give the kids to the grandparents. Like let's fix the things that are wrong on the inside and in the foundation so that we can move forward in a more healthy way.
Absolutely. And also, I think in this culture, people glamorize marriage, and
Gosh, the
they
Instagram
are
reel.
all about the wedding. They're all prepared for the wedding.
Oh yeah, let's show.
But
Let's
they're
have a
not prepared
party.
for the marriage.
Yeah.
And marriage is not easy. It's hard work, and like you change throughout the years, and you have to sometimes like, meet each other again and again. And then once you have kids, like it's like this whole fog and things get rough. And like I don't regret us separating because we both did some soul searching and worked on ourselves. Now I did make a lot of mistakes during that, and I think I had just had Maverick recently, and I had some postpartum issues going on, and I let it get too far before I was medicated. So I wasn't really thinking clearly at the same time, even though I thought I was completely being logical in some of the things I was doing. But I think the separation was necessary because I started dating him when I was 18, fresh out of high school, and got serious. And, then we got married when I was 21, 22 or whatever. So it's like, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And we went through a lot of things. So I think we just needed to like have that separation and like really look within ourselves, because it's easy to sit there and say, this is what's wrong with him. This is what's wrong with him. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. But it's like, I had to look at myself.
Yep.
I'm not perfect. And I got a lot of like unhealed wounds that I need to take care of. Like, I don't even like myself. So how am I going to show my husband that I like him and model a healthy home when I didn't even like myself?
Girl, amen.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, and like my parents, like I didn't know, but there's a lot of traumatic things that they both went through, but they never like healed from it. And they were raised to like, don't complain about this or that. And, don't be putting your business out there. Don't cry about, like, don't sit there and complain about stuff. Like, you just keep that to yourself. Like, don't make it someone else's problem. So then, then they're raising kids when they have all this unhealed stuff. So it made me look at my mom and both my parents actually, more like probably how Christ looks at them. And that's what something I prayed about is like, I want to see people how Christ sees them. I don't want to sit there and say, oh, this person makes these choices that are terrible, whatever. Because I used to say some very hateful things about people that I just didn't care for. But like, I guess I feel like God has really worked on me of like, look, there's a whole other part of your mom that you don't know about, because she's a person too. And she went through things that are not resolved. And she, was handling the only way that she knew how. So it's like, I don't know. It's just sometimes you have to really look in yourself. And I guess one thing I wish I would have done, because I never asked God before I got married. I didn't ask him before I had kids, like, because I didn't ask God about anything. I was doing whatever I wanted to do.
Right.
But I guess if I were to be able to change anything, and I would have, built that relationship with God and try to let him heal those things within myself before I go and try to like make a family, so that I'm not trying to figure that out while also raising a family and trying to have a healthy marriage, because it's difficult.
Oh God, you took on a lot of weight, bro. Yeah. A lot of responsibility real quick.
Yes. Yeah. So like people really need to, in my opinion, the wedding, cool, nice, whatever. I didn't have one, so I don't know. But
wait,
I spent
what?
$25 to go get married at the mayor's office. I don't care. I didn't
Okay.
have no real wedding, but like people get excited about the wedding and then it's all about the wedding. And then
Right.
once they get to the marriage part and the hard stuff comes along, then things start getting a mess. It's like really look at within yourself. And because those unhealed wounds in you,
Mm-hmm.
that person should not be responsible for taking that off of you or healing you.
Right.
You know, they can be there to like talk to, but like if you have all this like damage within and you just ignore it and keep pushing it down, it's going to come back up eventually.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's going to cause issues in your marriage and as a parent and stuff like that. Like you got to work on that stuff and work through it. And I wish I would have done that before starting a family. So I'm not trying to raise kids while also trying to like re-raise myself almost.
That part.
Yeah. So.
All right. So you said something and we're going to dive into it. But I just want to say real quick, like I 100% agree with you. Like we need to stop glamorizing this whole marriage thing. Like I understand 100%. I believe God approves. Let's throw a party. Let's enjoy ourselves. I don't think that we need to spend 10 to 20 or 30 or $50,000 on one day of a party.
That's crazy.
It's insane. Like let's stop glamorizing what is supposed to be a funeral.
Yeah.
Like these are two people who invited all their friends and family to watch them give vows, kiss each other, and commit to a life of death. Like I am there to die to my wife. She is there to commit to dying to herself. And we have to, oh my gosh, sometimes the person who comes to that altar and says, I'm ready to die, needs to die. I'm not even going to say sometimes. I'm going to say a lot of times. Because when we come to Christ, we are an ugly person and we have to die with Christ and be raised with Christ and be a new creation.
Yeah.
So in marriage, you are dying so that you can become a real creation, because who you are before you are married to your spouse is a monster. Like you're a monster in some way. I don't care how pretty she is. I don't care how much her life is together. On the inside, she may be selfish. She may have an ugly heart. I don't care how bulky his muscles are. I don't care how chiseled his jawline is. I don't care how much of a gentleman he is. He probably is a monster on the inside, because we are all selfish. We are all sinful, and we all need to die to ourselves so that we can live to serve others, especially our spouse and our children. It starts there. Like our first ministry is our family. Whether you're called to serve in the church or any of those things, because we're about to get into this.
Yeah.
But before, like, it doesn't matter. Like if you are living with Christ, if you're a believer in Jesus and you're not serving in the church, guess what? You're doing ministry. You're already doing ministry. You have a family. Your first ministry is your family.
Absolutely.
And it's to the man to steward his home as the head of the home. And it's to the wife to be the helper. And all those dynamics can get really, really weird and different. And I mean, it's not the same for everybody, but I do know the order of things that God has given us. But we need to stop glamorizing marriage and thinking that it needs to be a big show and waste all this money and do all these things when it's literally two people coming together and committing to dying to each other. And don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here just downing marriage. It's a beautiful thing. Death is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing because something has to die, like a seed in a ground has to die before it could ever become a flower.
Yep, absolutely.
And if we're going to allow our marriages to become the flower or the gardens of beautiful plants, then we have to die to ourselves first.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's turned into like just a party to entertain everybody.
Yeah.
Instead of actually what it's actually for.
Yeah.
Like it's just people make it about everything that it's not even about.
Girl,
and then there's people like, and I don't know, I might get some hate for this. Some people that will go get married in a church and they don't even go to church. They don't even have a relationship with God. But because their family wants them to get married in church, or because they want it for the pictures or just for show or whatever. And it's like, okay, the Lord's house is not made there for you, for Instagram worthy. You know what I mean?
Right.
like people have just made it way about things that it's not even about.
Oh, they made it about themselves.
All about themselves, and just like an opportunity to like get sloshed and have fun and do things. Like, I'm like, that's not even what it's about. And honestly, I was just talking to my mom about this last night. Because she had a wedding at a courthouse and a wedding and then an actual wedding. And she's like, I would never have an actual wedding ever again.
For real?
Yeah. Because she's like, it's just all about entertaining people. And then you're stressed out the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
And then when people leave early, you're kind of irritated because you put in all this time and money into this day and it just flies by. And then you got people that complain no matter what, or you're trying to please everybody. Like it's all about pleasing people. And then like no one's ever going to be like fully satisfied. And, some people are gonna be like, what, you don't have an open bar? Well, that's dumb or whatever. Or then it's about pleasing your friends. Well, I want to be in the wedding. Why am I not in the wedding? And then like, you just feel like you have to please everybody.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's so stressful. I'm just like, I'm so glad. Cause I was in a wedding before and I said, I will never do this again.
Girl. I
love you all, but do not put me in your wedding. I can't deal with it.
I hear you. I'm the same way on the inside. I love getting dressed up though. Like it's fun.
Me too. Like I liked it.
Let me get dressed up. But it's like
all the bridesmaids like not getting along about something, and I'm like, oh no, I can't do this.
Nah.
It's like this is why I don't socialize. This is why I don't socialize with people. I'm like, there's way too many bridesmaids. I said, I don't even like that many people. I do like people. I'm just joking. But it's like, there's just too many people, too many opinions. And then I'm like, you know what? Just tell me what dress to go get and tell me what time to be at the church.
Facts.
Like that would have been
I got
cool with
me. I got me.
Yeah.
Give me the itinerary. Yeah. I'll be there on time.
Yeah.
I know nobody else will, but I'll be there.
Yeah. It's like, I don't care about all the other stuff. Like, I just don't. I'm like, stop complaining. It's not your wedding.
Right.
Who cares if you don't like the dress? Put it on and be quiet.
Like, why is the bridezilla coming out in the bridesmaids?
Yeah. Like, and it's just too much. And I'm like, I can't deal with some people.
I hear you. All right. So tell me about your marriage then. So you told me about your childhood and now we're in it. So like you had a simple wedding and everything. Like, tell me about you and Keith, man. How'd y'all meet?
Okay, so my first job when I was 16 was Outback Steakhouse.
Okay. Waitress? Hostess?
I was a hostess, and then I did like the carry out eventually when I was a little bit older. And he worked in the kitchen. And it was always, if anyone has ever worked in a restaurant, you know the jokes of like the kitchen guys hitting on the front of the house. And like that's what the people up front of the restaurant are called or whatever. And so we worked together for 3 years and I never knew his name. I maybe made eye contact with him one time.
It was probably to be like, where's my ticket? Like, come on.
Yeah, I was actually in the back rolling silverware and I was talking to somebody else and I just happened to make eye contact with him. And they used to call him zombie face because it was like he had no expression. Like he has just a poker face sometimes. And you don't know what he's even thinking. It's just like this blank face with no expression. So then I remember after making eye contact with him, I was just like, that was really weird. That guy was kind of odd. Like I just looked at him and there's like nothing there.
Like,
I'm
what,
like,
bro?
Like you don't even look like you're having a bad time. You don't look like you're having a good time. Like you just like looked at me with like this blank stare and it was like really weird. But fast forward to I had gotten my STNA license and started working at a nursing home. So then I like kind of fizzled out of Outback, and my best friend that worked there was also dating someone in the kitchen, and it happened to be his best friend. So then at some point she has said something like, oh, hey, Alex and I were hanging out with Keith, and Keith said like, hey, you should, hook me up with your friend or whatever. And she had mentioned something to me. And at that point I was like, nah. And he added me on Facebook and I didn't even know who he was at first because I didn't know his name.
Right.
And then his picture, like people know this, but he used to like get high in high school and stuff like that. So it was an old picture of him like stoned looking off to the camera. Like
looking
you're not even
more of a zombie.
Yeah, you're not even like looking at the camera. That I'm like, this dude is weird. So like I was just like, what in the world? And then he's liking everything that I posted. Dude, there's no way you relate to all this because I'm not even relating to some of this. Some of it's just funny. So he's just trying to get my attention, and I was
like, I'm just reposting things, bro.
Yeah, and at this point, like I was gonna go off to college. Like I didn't want to be like tied down to anybody. I was like, no, I'm just living my life. And I had just went through a breakup, and I was just like, no, I'm good. And I don't know, some time had passed, and I was just like, you know what? Maybe I'll go on a date with this guy or whatever. And I remember like talking to my stepmom of like, because I kind of wanted to dip out. I was like, no, I kind of don't want to, but I already
Right.
set it up. And I'm like, and she's like, well, at least you could go get some free food in a movie, and then you don't have to talk to him anymore if you don't want to. So that was the plan. But to my surprise, he was really funny. And that was just something that like,
come on, Keith.
Because he was like not my type. I almost didn't date him because he had red hair. I'm like, I ain't date no ginger. And now I got a ginger son. So that's my karma right there. Now I have a redheaded little son. Yeah, because I used to tease kids when I was in school, like, oh, you carrot head and all that.
Right.
And
or
I
like
was
say they don't have a soul. Like I never understood that part.
I don't know.
Like where did that ever? Kids are just weird.
Yeah.
Man.
And I was just like, dude, I can't date this dude. He has red hair. But I'm like, but he can take me out to eat and take me to a movie.
Facts.
And then he came to pick me up in this raggedy Ford Ranger that I swear I could hear a block away. And then it pulls up and I'm like, this dude is about to put me in this death trap.
What color was it?
It was like red, I think it was.
And
it was just falling apart because he's one that like, he's not materialistic. He has become like, I guess like now he likes nicer things, but he's not like obsessive about it like some people are.
Mm-hmm.
But before then, like he's not paying more than like a couple grand for a car. He still had a flip phone. And I'm like, what in the world are you doing, dude? You can't even take a picture on that thing. It looks like Civil War footage. And I remember he had like a gallon of water in his truck. And I'm sitting here like, this is weird, dude. Is he like drinking all this or whatever? No, it would overheat. And I don't even know what he did to it. I remember him getting
it's
gas.
A Ford Ranger.
And I'm sitting here like, dude, I cannot, like, what did I do? What did I agree to? What is going on? And then he ended up,
I just wanted food in a movie.
Yeah. And I'm just like, and you know what? I could have just went down the street and got my own food and went and like rented a movie.
And not had to risk your life.
Yeah. And now I'm just like, what is happening? I don't know what's going on here. And I'm like, abort mission. But yeah, he ended up being really funny. We had a good time. And then we had like another date. And then we just kept going on other dates and all this. And then next thing you know, we're dating. And, fast forward to like today, those best friends that introduced us, they're married with 2 kids. And now we're married with 2 kids.
That's adorable.
But I told him, I said, it is so weird how close we were to not ever dating because I almost ghosted you. And I was like, and then I was kind of using you for food in a movie.
Dang.
Yeah. And then you ended up being funny enough because he was like at work and stuff, he was always really quiet. And sometimes I'm really quiet, sometimes I'm outgoing.
Yeah.
But if he would have been like really quiet and stuff, I would have been like, we're not doing this ever again. But like he just like had this sense of humor that like just drew me to him, and he just made me laugh, like ugly laugh. And yeah, I don't know, we just like kind of kicked it off. So
I think I know what it was. So when y'all were working at Outback and y'all had that awkward like stare for I don't even know how long it was.
Too long.
Bro.
That's what I know.
Okay.
It's probably 2 seconds, but 2 seconds too long.
I feel like God just told me. The reason it was so weird is because God told him you were his wife.
Well, that's what he's told me.
He had the life flash before his eyes.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
he was crushing on me for a while when I worked there.
And I said, he was liking all the posts. He knew you were his wife.
Yeah, and I knew what he was doing. And I said, I don't know what this redheaded ginger dude is trying to, like, no, buddy. But like, he like had a crush on me for a long time. And I'm like, I wish I could have said the same, but I didn't even know your name. So I'm like, I just knew you as the guy that made my cheese fries right. Because I used to get so mad because I said I want my cheese fried layered, and they would just put all the cheese on top, and I hated that. And because they knew I was an employee, so the ticket comes up with my name, and he was like always the one that actually would layer it. And I'm like, thank you, dude. And then like now we'll joke around. And he's like, yep, I had to make sure I took care of my woman. I had to layer her fries.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
layers of love, bro.
Yeah.
Like if there's a way to a woman's heart, it's definitely food.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Girl.
He even told me when we first started dating, because I can get a little moody. And I remember like we were freshly dating, and he's like, do you want to go get some food? I know that makes you feel better. And I was just like, Asia, you got a problem, man. Like this dude is like tiptoeing around you, offering you food. And I was like, yes.
Marry me.
Let's go.
So how did he propose? Like how long were you guys dating? Like
We were dating, I want to say it was 3 years, and I was actually already pregnant with Gwen. You know, we had moved in together and all that
Right.
stuff. But it was Christmas Day, and I guess I did tell him that, you know, if we ever were to get engaged, that like I wanted our families to be there. But then he said like he knew that if both of our families were there, that something would be up because his family's so large and like so is mine kind of. And like our families don't get together like that. That he's like, I knew you would know if something was up.
Oh, yeah.
So I just did
Like,
it
why
around
is there
your
30,
family.
50 people here?
Yeah. And then I didn't think that through because I don't like being a center of attention. It sounded good in my head. But then when it actually was happening, like obviously I was like, it caught me off guard and I loved it and everything. But because I knew all eyes were on me, I started sweating really bad. And then after, you know, I put the ring on and stuff, I had to go outside because I was getting nauseous. I felt like I was going to throw up. And I'm like, man, I can't walk down an aisle. Because that was something I was like worried about when we were wedding planning. I'm like, everyone's going to look at me. I don't like being center of attention and all that. And yeah, so actually he did buy a really nice ring for me. And he went to show it to my family a few nights before. And it was just like this simple, nice ring with a center stone. I loved it. He showed it to me afterwards. But then my grandma, when he told her that he was going to propose, she's like, no, 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 I have my original wedding set. Because my grandparents ended up getting new rings like years before. And she held on to it so that I would have it. And, you know, it's not anything I would have picked out in a jewelry store, but it was just the meaning. It was this is my grandma's. And it was raggedy when I got it. She used to work in a factory, and I don't know if she ever got that thing professionally cleaned. So when I saw that thing, I was like, what in the world? But I was like, it ain't even about the ring. I was just like happy about it, but whatever. But then eventually, you know, the stones started coming out of it, and I got like a new set or whatever. But I remember him showing me the ring he originally got for me, and I loved it. And we were so torn because I'm just like, I really love that ring. And he's like, I couldn't tell your grandma no. She said that would be something you have after she dies. And he's like, how am I supposed to say anything to her when she's talking about when she dies? And I'm like, he's like, so I had to go take it back. And then he took it back and went and got another crappy truck with it. And I'm like, that crappy truck could have been on my finger.
Right. Like, dang it, Grandma, don't weaponize your death.
Yes.
Could have had a rock.
Yeah. So,
dude, that's so cute, though. So you guys got married in a courthouse?
Yep, we went to the mayor's office. It was kind of, I wouldn't say spur of the moment, but like I was getting overwhelmed with even looking at how much things cost. And we were already living together, already had a daughter. So I'm just like, why would we spend all this money? And I was like, I don't remember if I was in nursing school yet or it was like right before I went back to nursing school after having Gwen. But it's like, you know, we didn't have money like that. And I'm sitting there like, we live in this tiny, incy-dincy apartment. And I'm like, it pretty much came down to, do we want to buy a house or do we want to have a wedding? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I want to buy a house. So then we ended up just kind of seeing what day worked best for our parents and my grandparents, because his grandparents passed when he was younger. So it was just his parents, my mom, and then my grandma and grandpa. And they were about to go on their like annual vacation to Myrtle Beach. So we wanted to kind of like just do it soon because I'm like, well, I mean, if we can just go up to the courthouse, why don't we just do it?
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that they were there. Well, they were going to be gone for a while, and I don't remember what else was going on with our schedule or whatever. But we just picked a day that all of them were able to be there, and we got married on a Friday, and then we went to like Olive Garden and went out to eat. And then we went camping for a weekend.
Dope.
And it was very laid back and stress-free. And I mean, I got like a white dress from like TJ Maxx that was just like a little summer dress. And I did still go get my hair done and stuff like that because I did want it to be special. I'm not going to show up in like just regular clothes, which some people do. That's fine. But like I still like, it was still formal and stuff. Like for me, like, okay, this is our wedding day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very laid back and very cheap. It was really nice.
Girl, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Kudos. Yeah, we did the small, simple wedding too. Of course, you probably already know if you watched the episode. Ours was super small, super, super intimate. Still got the dress and all, the suit and all that jazz. But like, yeah, I
But
can't be
I
doing that big
liked it
show.
though. Like sometimes
Yeah.
when we go to weddings, I will kind of get sad, like, oh, I kind of wish
Right.
we would have had this
Like,
or
look,
that,
they're
or for
so
the
cute.
pictures. And I work in hospice, so I see a lot of like older people, and I've always worked with the elderly since I was 17, 18. So like, and I'm one that like I like to look at their pictures because I want to see what they were before, what
Yeah.
they were like before this
Like, let me
illness
see
or
your
whatever.
life.
Because who they are when I see them is not who they are.
Right.
So then I'm always seeing wedding pictures and I'm like, man, like I really want to be able to have these wedding pictures to look back on one day. Like, yeah, we have pictures of us at the mayor's office, but it's like, people always had like the bride and the groom and then all the wedding party and stuff like that. And we didn't have any of that, but we want to eventually do like a vow renewal.
Yes.
And that will be our real wedding.
That part.
But then it's like, yeah, we're not gonna, yeah, I want a nice dress that I like and stuff like that and a nice venue, but I'm not really going to care about going all out. Like, I don't care what kind of flowers there are. I don't care if there's no flowers because I don't even like flowers.
Girl.
I will, if I have flowers, I'm going to go to Hobby Lobby and get those fake flowers.
Yeah, because I'm going to use them afterwards.
Yeah, and I know people that have bought real flowers. I'm like, why? Why? I went to my friend's wedding and they were handing them out as people were leaving because they didn't want to waste them. They were thousands of dollars of these big giant bouquets. I'm like, what do you want me to do with this?
Like, it's going to go to my house and die.
Yeah. Every plant in my house dies. I'm lucky that, if it wasn't for children being able to vocalize when they need something, like
they might die.
Yeah, like plants don't make it in my household. So I'm just like, I don't want your wedding flowers. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry you spent a lot of money on these that no one really paid attention to.
Right.
Like, I don't want them.
Like, it was pretty, but guess what?
Like,
it didn't matter.
Yeah.
That's cute though. So like, how long have you guys been married?
It will be 6 years in June.
So are you guys going to like do this for like the 10 or the 15 or the 20?
Yeah. I was kind of thinking about the other day and it would probably be just because we want to like renovate our house. Our house was built in the 60s and we're slowly like making it a home.
Gotcha.
And like we still have a whole like unfinished basement that we want to do. Like it'll pretty much double the value of our house because there's 2 other bedrooms down there, bathroom, kitchen, all that stuff down there. And we kind of want to just like flip that first and just like we just have other goals.
Gotcha.
So it's just like, it's not really that big of a deal.
Yeah, like we're married. Like
there's no rush to
put on the show. Like we can do whatever we want.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't care. Can you hear me in this? Oh yeah, it did. I think Gabe's cutting out. Maybe not.
Yeah, no, you're good. So yeah, so I gotta so growing up and then met Keith at 18, went through the marriage and everything. We spoke about it a little bit, but now I want to start getting into it. You didn't recognize it back then, but you feel like it was God telling you that there was more, pretty much, if I could put it in those words, and that you had a purpose here on this earth.
Right.
And clearly,
yeah.
you do. So, I want to know what's your experience, your relationship, all the things. Like, give me all the details. Like, when you first seen God show up, or if you had any experience with him, like younger church, like if you were just an Easter and a Christmas Christian for a while, or what's your experience with God? Like, just dive straight into it.
Like growing up, like I said, like we were like in and out of church and then would go like on holidays and, before Keith and I had kids, like we went to a church in Tiffin for a little bit where we lived for a short time and kind of like in and out. Like he grew up in church, but like I didn't. But honestly, when my sister was going to preach that message at church, it was December 2021, I think it was. It was on the 26th. It was the day after Christmas.
It was Destiny, correct?
Yes.
Yep. I remember that.
She had invited me, and it's actually really funny because I woke up kind of late that morning. I think I may have worked or something. I don't remember. But anyway, I had woke up late and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it in time. So I almost didn't show up. And then I'm like, no, I have to show up. My sister wants me to be there. She wouldn't have told me about it if she like wasn't wanting me to go. And I had to stick to my word. I already told her I was going to show up. So I show up. And it was honestly like the presence of the Holy Spirit and I never understood when I was younger why people would cry and stuff in church, like I was always like, what is going on? What are we
Like,
crying
why are you
about?
running?
What is happening? Like, and I actually was very new to Pentecostal. I had never been in a Pentecostal church anymore. So it was a few months of an adjustment because
sure.
I mean, even sometimes now, like there will be some things that I'm just like, what's going on? Like I've caught myself like kind of chuckling before because I didn't realize what was happening. I'm like, oh, this is
That's
not really
God.
something for me to laugh about. Like this is
No,
like
I
a
hear
Holy
you.
Spirit situation, you know? But I think it was just like just feeling that Holy Spirit and it was almost overwhelming and I can't even put it into words. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just remember I don't know. It was like God showed me like how much my sister has grown because I was going through a lot of things in life and Keith and I had just got back together from our separation. So like
Right.
I had went a long time without really seeing her. Um and there was just like so many emotions I was feeling. And then it's just like I just felt like God was like just trying to touch my heart of like there's so many things that like I want to heal. You got to let me.
Yeah.
And I just like kept going week after week and next thing you know, we are churchgoers. So, um, but I really started like diving in to the Bible. I had never actually read the Bible before.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't ever understand it, and I didn't even realize there was other translations. Like I was just like, oh, okay, so there is something I can understand.
Oh yeah.
Not thy the blah blah.
Yeah. The
Like
these and the
what?
thous and the
Like it should not take me a whole year to get through
no.
one page, like trying to understand what it
Like
is.
English is broken enough. I feel like that should not be broken.
Yeah, and it's like, man, I can't understand this stuff. But I started diving into scripture, and just like I guess letting like God talk to me, I guess. And I remember, you know, I started getting very consistent with being in my word every day and praying. And I just didn't really have the desire to watch like the shows that I used to watch. And then I eventually started having like conviction of listening to rap music, which I grew up listening to. So that's like what I was used
What
to,
type of rap music though? Like
bad
gangster rap music?
gangsta,
Like thug?
thug,
Okay, got you.
thugging it
All right.
out.
I
Yeah.
just want to make sure it wasn't
Yeah.
like
Stuff that
weird
right
country
now
rap.
would really
Yeah, no,
rattle me now if
I
I heard
got you.
that. And I'm just like, ooh, no. Um, but I just like slowly started feeling like that transformation. And then I even remember after getting baptized at night of praise, just like feeling like I was just like on top of the world,
Mm-hmm.
I guess is how I would explain it. Like nothing could shake the like excitement I had or the joy that I had. But then I started noticing like I would kind of like go backwards a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I had to recognize like this is the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And like no, like I already like I've experienced the Holy Spirit, like don't go back.
Yeah.
And I remember I was sleeping like knocked out and I remember like right in my ear I heard a whisper and it said Jesus and like this voice I can't even describe, but I know it was him. Like, and it's so weird to describe because that's the only time I have like audibly heard his voice, but it was right in my ear at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:20 something. And I remember I woke up kind of frazzled for a minute, like, what? And then, like, I instantly felt comforted. Like, I could just feel the Holy Spirit. And then I'm like, no one could ever tell me that God's not real because, like, I literally just encountered that. And there's so many other things I look back on now that I'm like, there's God, there's God there, there's God here, there's God there. And then I started noticing, I'm like, he's been with me this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I wasn't living for him, when I probably wasn't even saying very nice things about him. I used to not even want people to talk about Jesus to me. I was like, oh
Right.
gosh, no, go. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, like
Get away.
get that religion out of
Like,
here.
all right,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. Because my grandma would be like, oh, just pray about this. And I'm like, okay, grandma, whatever.
Right. That holy
Yeah,
hippie
I'm just like, all
hoopla.
right, whatever, grandma. And yeah, there's just like that was just like I can't go back to how I was because I've already experienced him so closely
Mm-hmm.
that I just can't. Like, and then when the service that we had that I got my spiritual language, I had been praying for that for a few months.
Yeah.
And I do actually vividly remember that I was like praying and I was kind of like on my way to falling asleep. And it was like I was praying in my head, but it was like in the spiritual language. And
No,
I'm
I
like,
got you.
man, I must be so tired. I can't even like form words in my head. I don't even have to say it out loud. And I remember being like, well, maybe that's like the spiritual language. I don't know. Like I had no idea.
Come on.
I didn't grow up hearing that. So it used to like freak me out. And I'm like, whatever, what is going on in here? But then I remember that service and I just had to let go of all those things that I had been holding on to and like just forgive a bunch of people. I had to verbally say it. I forgive this person. I forgive that. And I have always been someone that like, I care what I look like or whatever. So then I would, even when I would start going up to the altar, I still like would be like conscious of what I did, or I didn't want to like let myself go.
Yeah.
Well, this specific service, I just let myself go. And I like had my eyes closed purposely so that way I didn't get distracted and I could just be in the presence of God and let him have his way with me. And once I like literally just laid that stuff down, boom, spiritual language. I didn't even know what was going on. I remember going around praying over people. No idea what's going on. Yeah.
I think I remember that Sunday.
Yeah. And I like couldn't even explain it. I remember leaving church and I was like, what in the world just happened? And then I'm like, did I just make that up?
Like God, what'd you do to me, dude?
Yeah. It was just like, I really had to think
like
about
a spiritual roofie.
Yeah. And it was like an
God,
experience I never had before. And I just like, I couldn't describe how I felt or anything. I'm just going over and praying over people, not knowing anything about what they're up there to pray for, nothing. They didn't even know I was over, like I was behind them and, you know, they're like on their knees or whatever. And I just put my hand on their shoulder and I'm like just praying in spiritual language, not knowing a
and they're getting crushed by the Spirit at that point.
Yeah,
it's
like
just flowing
I didn't
through
even know what was going on. I'm just like because before like I would never just go up to someone and start praying with them. Like I'm just like, whoa, because then I kind of almost felt embarrassed when I left. Like that was really weird. That was a little awkward.
No, I feel you.
And I'm like, and that just happened in front of everybody, and I don't even know what happened. And I'm like, oh, that's weird.
Oh yeah,
but yeah.
Especially after like a God moment, the enemy is going to come and just be like, hey, that wasn't real, or wasn't that embarrassing?
Then I started like doubting myself a little bit, but luckily pastor like stayed in touch with me of like, hey, that enemy's going to try to convince you that wasn't real and that was made up. But it was real.
Yeah. And it was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, dude, I love you. Sister, I love you.
I love you too.
Yeah. Let's get into this. So I don't want to misunderstand you, but are you saying that you didn't have like a straight up encounter to where like you were completely transformed and changed and you're never going back, but it was you just coming to church and then just kind of vibing for a little bit, seeing what this whole God thing is, and actually, because hearing about God's one thing, but then coming to church and actually experiencing Christianity and what this all means and what it is and educating yourself, and then sooner or later making the decision to just commit. Are you telling me that you didn't have an encounter, but you just came and lived it out and then sooner or later committed? Or because I'm sure you've had encounters, but what was your deciding factor that Jesus is my Lord and Savior and I'm never turning back?
When I heard his voice in my ear was because I was kind of just showing up to church. I'm like, you know, I kind of like the way I feel coming here. I'm going to just keep going and see how it goes. Just kind of seeing where it was taking me and all that. And once I heard his voice right into my ear like that, I was just like, God is real.
Yeah.
Like, and no one can convince me otherwise. People can sit there and say whatever they want to say. But I'm like, you could never convince me that Jesus is not real. You just can't. You just can't. Because there's no one else was awake in my house. And I know what I heard. And I know what I experienced. Like, so it's just like, no one could say anything to me that's going to convince me otherwise. Because I already encountered him.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so I wanted to know because I'm more than certain, like I could almost guarantee that there are more than a few people out there who are those like transformed from an experience. Like they went through an experience, they're transformed and they're like, I'm never going back. I'm on fire for Christ and all that jazz. And then you have like, I'm gonna just say it, like your regular Christians out here, just like
it's just a routine ritual kind of
hey,
thing. Like,
good for you. Like,
yeah.
I'm going to church. I'm like,
Some
I
people just
believe
go to
in
church to
God.
go to church.
Oh, that's for sure.
There's people that have sat in church their entire life and they don't know Christ. They think they do,
Yeah.
but they really don't.
And
they look at it as a bunch of lists, like a list of do's and don'ts.
right. Religious.
Yeah.
It's completely religious.
And people that are religious and people that are children of God are two completely different things.
Oh,
I
yeah.
never knew that. And it's so hard for people to wrap their head around it because they just think they're like stuck in their way of thinking what Christianity is, or, you know, living for Christ. And like, yeah, I go to a Pentecostal church, but I don't label myself as like a denomination. Like, I'm for God. I go to a Pentecostal church.
Right.
I am a child of God. I don't go,
absolutely.
I'm this, I'm that. And like, people will ask me, oh, what denomination? Well, I go to a Pentecostal church and I'm a child of God. Like, I go but what the Bible says. I'm not going to follow, regardless of whatever church or denominational church I would ever go to. You're not going to sit here and say, well, we believe these things. I believe what the word says.
Come on.
I believe what the word says, not what any church believes or whatever the way of doing something is.
Right.
Like, I know that, you know, some denominations like don't believe in speaking in tongues.
Yep.
And it used to creep me out. But you know what? It's in the Bible.
Yeah.
And there's just like so many things that I'm like, okay, well, this denomination believes in this, and then this one believes in that. And it's like, whatever the word says, I'm going to believe what the word says.
Come on.
So.
Yeah. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, what denomination are you with? I'm with the kingdom.
Yeah.
Like, I'm out here with God. Like, I am his child by adoption because I'm not a Jew. I am a Gentile.
Yes.
I am lucky to be adopted into the family, and I am very, very grateful.
Yeah.
And I understand. It's definitely a frustration. It's a frustration that I had growing up, like being raised in the church. I never understood any of it. And then when I did come to understand it, I'm like, why are we divided? I help me figure this out. Like,
I still don't understand why there's so many denominations. Like, that
it's
was
because
one of my
we
things.
can't get along.
That was one of my things when I wasn't really, like, I believed there was a God, but I kind of like labeled myself as agnostic. Like, I wouldn't full on say I was like atheist and didn't believe there was a God. But I was just like, what didn't make sense to me is like, well, why are there so many denominations? Why does this denomination believe in that? Why does this denomination believe in this? Like, it just didn't make sense to me.
Right.
I said, okay, well, if it's just one way, then why are we having all these denominations believing certain cherry picking scripture of what they want to live by and believe?
Come on. The
And
Bible's
it's
not a
just
menu.
like,
we can't
no.
pick and choose what I want to eat today.
Yeah.
Like, God said, eat my body and drink, or drink my blood and eat my flesh.
Yeah.
He said all of me. He
Yeah.
said, I am the way, the truth, and the life.
Right.
Not baptism's the way, not Pentecostal's the way,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying these things are bad. I'm not saying they're very good because they're in the Bible. It's just you're fixating on one thing, and God's more than that.
Yeah, and you're letting the enemy come in and divide all of us Christians by denominations.
Yeah.
Because then there's people arguing about what denomination is more accurate and, you know, all that. And then you just have people that are just divided. And it's just like, okay, well, if we all have one goal here is to make it to heaven with Jesus Christ, then why are we all sitting here arguing and bickering over stuff? And like, there really shouldn't be any question of, oh no, this is right where this is wrong. It's like the word tells you. Just read the word.
Yeah.
So why are we arguing about what's true and what's not when it has already been said?
Absolutely. And I think if we could stop being divided and come together, we would actually come to the conclusion that some Christians have already come to the conclusion. And I'm not saying it's the non-denoms that have came to this conclusion either. If we could come together, we could all agree that it is not about getting to heaven.
Yeah. Like, you're missing everything that you could be experiencing here on earth if that is the only thing that you think of. Like, you are missing an entire life with him.
Like, you're thinking of the finish line. Like what are you going to do after the finish line? Like, no, it's about the race. Like, I'm running a race out here with God, for God.
Yeah, you're missing out on a lot if that is the only thing that you're really wanting out of it. Like, you are missing the entire journey and experience and transformation. You're just missing the entire thing.
And I believe it was God's original intent when he established Adam and Eve in the garden.
Mm-hmm.
Like he gave Adam dominion
Yeah.
over the earth, and that was to rule earth the way
Mm-hmm.
that God ruled heaven, because Adam was made in God's image.
Right.
So if we're made in God's image as well, don't you think we're here to rule the earth just
Mm-hmm.
like God rules heaven? Now I'm saying he's the ultimate ruler,
Right.
but he tells us how to live life. He tells us what to do. And it's about encountering him
Mm-hmm.
and then bringing heaven to earth so that all can encounter him.
Yeah.
And his light can be shown
Mm-hmm.
shown throughout the whole earth through us and through other people. And if we could stop being divided, and please hear me, because I am, I mean, you know, I went through some recent growth and changes in the church. So I have a title and all that jazz. I'm not about the title. Give me the towel. I want to serve.
Yeah. I don't care about titles.
No, I don't. But like within our denomination, I believe in our denomination because I believe that we have taken the Bible and we are trying to live it out in its truest form. Men are flawed, though. We are very flawed, and we don't get it right all the time. Yeah. And I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I agree with a lot. And I believe in our denomination, what we're trying to do. But I also believe that God has a kingdom, not a denomination.
Right.
And a lot of times, not saying ours does it, because we have a very healthy church. We have a pretty healthy denomination, and we do a lot within not only this community, state, and country, but also this world. But I believe that God has a kingdom, and it's not about a denomination. And if we could look beyond that, we can do what we're talking about and witness heaven coming to this earth. Because I love our church. Like one of the first things you said when you came to our church, you felt the Spirit.
And I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
I was like, what is that?
Like, I want more.
What am I feeling? Like, what's going on? Like, I didn't even know why I was crying. Like, I was just sobbing back there. And I'm like, I don't even know what is happening right now.
The presence of God.
Yeah. But like, I think a lot of us Christians in general, we're wasting so much time being divided as Christians. And we have to remember that those non-believers out there, or people that are just questioning or just curious, they're watching us.
Oh, come on.
So if we're over here fighting and we're not even like loving each other like Christ loves the church, like we're just showing them like that we're a mess.
Oh, yeah.
And then they're like, I don't want no part of that.
Girl, you're about to influence a righteous rant. I'm about to go on a righteous rant. I am for this conversation for sure. Stop. Listen to me. I want to be very careful. Can we as Christians just come to that agreement and awareness that we are being watched? And if we think that anybody on this earth is going to join our book club and join our family while watching us be divided, no. We need to stop being delusional. These people out here, these believers or these unbelievers, these people
lost
who are
people?
Dude, they're lost. They're lost.
And
We're
they
just
don't
gonna
know
call
they're
them. I don't want to
lost.
sit here and be like, you're a sinner.
But
and
they
these
don't
all
even
these
know that they're
they
lost.
Don't.
They have no idea.
And we've realized the truth. Like we've come to the knowledge of the truth and who Jesus is and what he's done for us. And it's our job to share it. But yet we're so divided and so broken and so hurt and we're these children on the inside who haven't surrendered our childhood or our trauma and all these things and received our true identity in Jesus. I mean, we've gotten a realization of it, but we haven't truly received it to the point where we're completely transformed and we know how to love like God loves. Like or the Bible says, and I don't want to butcher this, but they'll know you by the way that you love each other. Yeah. That's the JHT, John Hinton translation. So the world's going to know us by the way that we love each other. But if we're not out here loving each other, do you think that they want to be loved by us? Absolutely not.
Oh, yeah. When I was a waitress at Olive Garden, so I was previously in STNA going to school, but then I don't know, the nursing home I was at just was kind of making me not want to be a nurse. So I was like, I got to get out of here while I finish school because I was almost done. But I remember serving Christians on Sundays, and I despised working Sunday mornings. I could not stand it. And it was because all the church people would come. And I'm not saying everybody was like this, but a lot of them were very rude.
Right.
They would snap their fingers at me, bark orders at me. And then I remember when I was pregnant with Maverick, I remember I was so swollen, I took my wedding ring off. And then I got all kinds of looks from them, like, oh, you're just
pregnant and
not married and all this. And so I would get I don't know. Those were the people I didn't want to even serve. Like I would,
Right.
and I would be nice to them, but I just could not wait for them to get up and leave because they were just a pain. And then I remember actually serving a Satanist, and I did not know this until they have those little kiosk things that you pay and you can sign or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I was helping him with it, and then I had turned it to him so he could sign, and he had put on there like "Hail Satan," and I'm sitting there like. And I wasn't even a Christian yet, but I was like, ooh, that did not feel good. But I'm like, man, this guy's been so nice to me. And like, we've been vibing. Like, it's been good, you know? And it's like, so obviously, if that's what people have to look at, and let's not even say that like just Satanists in general, like, you know, before I was baptized and stuff, like I was into crystals. I didn't realize it was like witchcraft. Like, I didn't know the nitty gritty of it.
Right.
Like, I looked at it like it was very innocent. But like I thought it was helping me or whatever.
Right. It's giving me power.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
grounded.
Giving me power. Like, no, it's actually just weighing me down because I have a bunch of rocks in my pocket. but you know, like people aren't going to be interested in even trying to seek God if God's so-called people are out here just making people feel like that. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, because as followers of Christ, in a loving way, we should tell someone like, hey, like you're going the wrong way. You know what I mean? But like it's all about approach too.
Oh, absolutely.
But like your goal isn't to sit there and try to seem like you're more mighty than somebody else or whatever. Like that just closes them off and then you make them want to run the other direction.
Yep.
So then there's so many people out here that are lost looking for something, but they don't know what it is. And it's Jesus. But some of his children are being, you know, little stinkers and making it the appearance of it like they're totally throwing everybody off and like just making it look completely different than what it's supposed to be. But it's like we're not loving people like Christ loved people.
Right.
And instead, we're making it about, you know, a list of do's and don'ts. Then like, oh, well, if you're living this way, then I don't even want to talk to you or whatever. You can still love that person, and we are called to still love that person and hate the sin. That's what people don't understand. I don't care if you have like a family member that's a lesbian and you are like, you shouldn't be like, oh, I hate them. I'm not talking to them or whatever. Like, nope, can't have anything to do with you. Still love that person. Absolutely. You don't have to support their lifestyle.
No. At all.
There's plenty of people that I love that I don't support their lifestyle or their choices or the way they choose to live their life. But I still love them, and they don't need to even question if I love them.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Yeah. No, we got to stop. Like I understand that God's word tells us that we are to be sanctified, which means to be separated. We're to be in the world, but not of it. But that is not permission not to have relationship. Like if you think that, like, have you noticed that Christians are out here just trying to follow what God tells them to do and that spread the gospel, but completely ignoring the fact that we need to have relationship with these people? If you think that you're going to share the gospel with somebody without having relational equity with them, like you need to be able to do what Jesus does and love them through the ugliness. Like while they're lost, love them.
Yeah, we're supposed to be like helping people like lead them to Christ. So we're actually doing the opposite of like shunning them and making them run the other direction. So what good does it really do if you're only preaching the gospel to people that already believe and already are Christians or whatever?
Come on.
Then you're not like, I mean, yeah, cool. You should have that fellowship and stuff, but it's like your goal should be is like, you want to reach out to those people that are lost and help them like, and guide them to Christ. Yep. Like not just be like, oh, well, you know, that drug addict over there or that woman that's got all these kids and she's a single mom and this prostitute and like sit there and just side eye them and put your nose up to them.
Right.
It's like, okay, most of us all have been someone else before we came to Christ.
Yep.
And most people sitting in church, they were not the people that they are today when they first walked into that church.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we think that people got there? So like you're almost kind of hindering that testimony, because someone could have a crazy, amazing, powerful encounter with God and have amazing testimony.
Mm-hmm.
But because, you know, a Christian kind of like rubs them the wrong way and almost like, I guess, like shuns them, I guess.
Yeah.
And puts them down, then it's like, then they're not interested.
Why would they want to have anything to do with us? How can I?
And I feel like that's something like God would be upset about. Is like, you know what? I led you to this person because, you know,
you were going to lead them to me.
You were supposed to lead them to me. And instead they went the opposite direction because you totally messed that all up. Like,
or you couldn't walk with them. Like, how are we going to lead somebody to Christ if we ain't walking with them?
Right.
Like sometimes you got to hold their hand, even if it's stinky, even if it's dry, even if they need lotion. Like I'm just saying, like, they're dry in their spiritual life because they're dead.
Yeah, and
they're dead in their
sometimes
sin.
they're not going to be very happy with you. They're not going to like that you tell them that they're living in sin or whatever. But that's okay, because it's like, I'm still going to, you know, I have a job to do here.
Yes.
And you can be upset with me all you want, but I still got to tell the truth.
Yep.
And I'm not, this culture today, I feel like is, you know, their version of Jesus is not who Jesus was. It's he loves everybody, loves you how you are. Yes, he loves you, but he loves you enough that he's going to help transform you.
Come on.
To live the way that he intended.
Yep.
Come to him how you are. You don't have to, like, you don't have to go take a shower. You don't have to clean up before you go take a shower.
Yep.
So you don't have to like get your ducks in a row before you can go to God. Like, you don't have to be like, well, you know, things are a mess. I have to get these things done before I can come to Christ. No, just come to Christ how you are.
If you could, you wouldn't come to him.
Then there would be no reason.
Yep.
You know, like people wouldn't follow God, I guess, if you were able to do all the things.
Oh yeah.
By yourself.
Why would you need God if you were able to do things on your own?
Yeah. And it's like, you know, you have to allow him to just take you on that journey.
Mm-hmm.
Like back in October, I quit vaping cold turkey. I could not take the conviction anymore. It was just, I couldn't take it anymore.
Right.
And it was hard. Like I was acting like a psychopath almost for like 4 days. The fourth day was worse because I was having insane mood swings and everything. But like, could you imagine if I was like, well, I can't go to church until I'm done vaping? If it wasn't for God, like I would have just kept going back. Like there's many times I tried to quit and then I would start again. And it's like, God did that with me when it was time.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's actually working with Keith right now. And Keith is trying to quit. And it's a different way though.
Yeah.
And that's another thing with Christians is like, okay, you have to remember that every person is different and their journey with God is going to be different than yours. So I can't sit here, like, imagine if I was like kind of degrading Keith and saying, well, I just quit cold turkey and I just leaned on God. That doesn't mean that he's weak, that he didn't quit cold turkey, but he also has a lot of more years of smoking and stuff than I do. And God's going to fix that in the way that he's going to fix it with Keith.
Yeah.
That's fine. That doesn't mean like, you know, oh, well, you know, you're not doing it the right way.
Or God loves you any less because he
no.
helped you faster. So why isn't he helping him?
Yeah. Like there's some people in our church, like I know someone specifically that a night of praise, like literally just had a transformation in front of everybody and like didn't pick up another drink of alcohol, never picked up another cigarette or whatever. And I kind of got discouraged hearing about that because here I was like, I'm still struggling with this stuff. And it's like, what am I not doing right? Like I don't have that crazy experience or amazing experience. And then I would like, kind of felt like, okay, well, you know, I'm not doing things the right way or whatever. No, God did it in the time that it took for me specifically. That was just a journey with him and I.
Yeah. Like
you can't compare yourself to other Christians. You just got to keep your eye on Jesus.
I can't remember who said it. It's a very well-known quote, but comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah. And I used to compare myself a lot.
One of the fruits of the spirit. Like I need joy.
Yeah. I remember when, it was actually Carrie had invited me to like go swimming. And so the kids and I went swimming with her. And I remember calling Christine and kind of like, I'm really nervous to hang out with her. And it wasn't anything about Carrie herself, but I'm like, here she is. She's a pastor's wife. And like, I just knew that I'm still a work in progress. Like,
Right.
you know, I still, so at that point, I'm like, sometimes I say a swear word and it slips or something like that. So then I felt like I had to be a certain way, and nothing about Carrie made me feel that way. It was something just with me of like, I felt like I had to be a certain way. Like, you know, can I not be myself? And then like, I'm like, this is so silly. I can just be myself around her.
Come on.
And like, and it was because I was comparing myself.
Yep.
I'm like, because they're at this point of their journey and I'm not there yet. So like, I felt like, okay, well, like, I just feel like I can't be myself, because then I'm going to like feel shame that here I am with a pastor's wife. And, you know, I don't know as much scripture, or, you know, maybe I don't like have a routine like they do. Like, you know, I don't have a prayer closet. That's something that we're getting ready to put together. But it's like everyone talks about their prayer closet, and I'm sitting there like, well, I don't have a prayer closet. Like, I'm not doing it right. And there's not a right or wrong
there's
way.
not. Girl, you're sitting in my prayer closet. You know that?
Yeah. And it's like, you know what? A lot of times I encounter God, it's in my car because I drive a lot for work, and that's okay. And it took me a while to like really grasp that. Like, I don't have to have the same routines and stuff as everybody else, because that's not what it's about. And it's like, and it's okay if this person's at this point of their journey and I'm not there yet, or say if I'm further, I guess you could say, and they're not where I'm at, that's okay. Like, God's doing it. Like, just take your hands off of it. Stop worrying so much. Obviously acknowledge when you're doing something that's sinful or that you shouldn't be doing, and then just be like, okay, I'm sorry, God, like, help me be better, you know, and it will happen.
Oh, it will. And I think it's funny just hearing you talk about it, because we know Carrie and Oyama pretty well, and just to hear your story, I'm like sitting here thinking, like,
I was stressed,
bro. They're just like us, though. That's why I love our church, because we're very open. That's why I love our church, and it's one of what we found at our church is also what we are creating here. It's a real place for real people to do real life together.
Yeah.
Like, our church is so awesome. Like, we're real. Like, we got some people who are going through processes, going through life, and sometimes they're not ready to share everything, and that's cool.
Right.
But when they're ready to share something, we have a safe place for them to share it, and we're just going through life together. And I've done the same thing as you, where I'm just like, okay, I gotta be careful. I can't share this piece of information. I gotta make sure I don't cuss. Like, and
I gotta act this way.
It becomes exhausting, because then we end up being unauthentic. Like, we're not authentic,
and it's
like,
lying.
It's lying.
Yes.
Like, can we be real? We're deceiving our
Yes.
brothers and sisters when we're supposed to be able to come to a place where God accepts us for who we are, and He's changing us, because we're not staying the same. And God's expecting His children to do the same for that person, whoever's going through the process.
Like, I remember when I first met you, like, I didn't know who you were yet or anything. But I think like my first time at the church, I was sitting in the row behind you or something, because you were like doing the media stuff or whatever. Yep. I remember seeing your tattoos and feeling relieved, because I remember I covered my tattoos up. And then I remember seeing other people, like Carrie had like a whole sleeve, and I'm like, okay, yeah.
I can vibe with this church.
And I'm like, okay, because I'm like, I can't just take my skin off and be like, sorry, okay. And then like, you know, things even like such as piercings and stuff. And it's like, some people make it so, they just make things about
the surface.
Yeah. And it's like, what's your heart like though?
Come on.
Because like, you can't judge from the outside. I have a tattoo that it looks like it's almost like a Buddhist tattoo. I'm not Buddhist. I just thought it was cool.
Right.
But it was before I was like really building a relationship with Christ. And now I'm like, no, I don't really like it. I want to change to something else, because I just don't like it. It's a very visible. Right. But it's like, someone could look at me and like just assume what kind of person I am. Or they could think like Christ and be like, okay, well, the outside, okay, they have a history. That's fine. Yeah. But like, what are they like now? Like, there's so many people that they don't even want to come into the church because they might have face tattoos, or they have tattoos everywhere else, or they have piercings, or, you know, whatever it is. But it's like we have to stop like looking at people and like just trying to assume what they're like.
Come on.
Because of that.
Let's
like
go
I
deeper.
love Pastor Yama's like testimony of like what he used to be like, because honestly, I don't want to listen to somebody that has always been perfect and has always been, they don't have like a past that's relatable.
Right.
And someone like Pastor Yama, like I can even speak for Keith, like they have a lot in common, and Keith loves when Pastor Yama preaches too. Like he is fine with everybody else too, and he likes Chad but he's more relatable to them. Like just like I kind of gravitate towards people that are more relatable to me. And if we just hide all that, then like we're not even gonna like you could be hindering someone else like hearing a message or something like that, because they're looking at you like you're perfect and they're thinking about all the things that, they've done that are wrong.
Right.
But like, that's why we should be open about like, hey, I used to do this and that and whatever. But what happened back then does not define who I am now.
Come on.
I was sitting in JDC for 4 days and then a psych ward a week before and all that. But that doesn't even touch on the person that I am today. You could never sit there and say that even has any relation to who I am today. Like, yeah, I've learned like some lessons and stuff like that. But like, unless I told somebody that, they would not be able to look at me and be like, oh, she was definitely in a psych ward. My husband might disagree sometimes, but like no one would sit there and look at me and be like, oh, she definitely has been behind bars before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get you.
But like, I could share that and inspire somebody. Like, say if someone who's watching now who is dealing with mental health and maybe they just got out of a psych unit or something like that, and they're like, oh, this is what I'm always going to be like, and I don't have any future. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Whatever is going on with you right now, back then, like God has a purpose for you, and stop letting things that happen to you or that you did in the past define who you are.
Come on.
I know people that were heavy into drugs that are now like their whole life is turned around. They have a whole family and kids now and good jobs. And, maybe 10 years ago, like I didn't even know if they're going to make it to the next year. And some people probably just gave up on them thinking they're going to overdose or whatever. Right. And that's why like I do hear people say comments about drug addicts. And that hits home with me because I'm close with people that have had drug problems. Mm-hmm. And now those people are completely different people. And now they have a life. And they wouldn't even probably think about going back to that.
Right.
But it's like, okay, everyone has a story.
Come on.
But it doesn't have to be your song. You know what I mean? It does not have to be like what defines you. And some people like kind of get discouraged of whatever they've been through. And then they just kind of sit there and they already assume like, okay, I'm never going to get a good job. I'm never going to be able to have a family. I'm always going to be this or that. Or like, hey, I grew up poor. I'm never going to, I'm never going to get out of this lifestyle. Like I'm never going to be able to have this. Right. And I had people speak over me when I was a kid. Oh, Asia, you're not going to go to college. You're going to be like us and whatever. And not that anyone's better than anyone else for not going to college.
Right.
But the fact that someone tried to speak that over me and pretty much put me in a box.
Yeah.
That was actually some of my motivation when I was going through school and I wanted to quit, is I remembered that person in my family saying that to me and I wanted to prove them wrong. Mm-hmm. And that when I graduated, I was like, no person is going to define who I am and who I'm going to be. And nothing that happened to me or that I've done in the past is going to define who I am. Like I'm going to let God take me wherever God wants to take me. Someone else's opinion about me or, whatever they perceive or whatever. Stop letting people speak that over your life and tell you what you're capable of, what you're not capable of, what you're going to achieve, what you're not going to achieve, and what kind of life you're going to live. Because sometimes that becomes our inner voice. And it was for a long time for me. I never thought like I would actually be a nurse and own a home and get married and have kids and stuff like that. Like I guess I didn't feel like I was good enough to have a life like that because like I didn't come from some of those things. And then I had people speak over me and like, nah, you're not going to go to school.
Right.
Like, you think that now, but you won't. You'll be just like so-and-so. And yeah, we all said we were going to go to college. Now you're saying that you won't go either. And it's like, no. And sometimes the enemy uses other people to kind of just get in your head.
Oh, I'm not even going to say sometimes. All the
Oh,
time.
all the time.
If he's going to use any way to attack you.
And it's like the people that are closer to you too.
Oh, absolutely. Because how could he get near you if he's not going to use somebody closer?
Oh, yeah. So like some of those like disagreements with family members and stuff, you're not fighting the person.
Yep. Come on.
You are fighting something way beyond that person. That person's just being used to get to you.
Yep.
That's all that it is. But like we oftentimes like cut people off because they made us upset or hurt us or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have like healthy boundaries and just let people walk all over you. Right. That's a different story. But sometimes we have to really remember that it's like this person may be under like a spiritual attack or something. Yep. And the enemy is using them to put you down because he sees that you're, following God. Yep. And he doesn't want you to reach your full potential. He does not want you to do that. He wants you to be divided and sad and depressed and all that. So he's going to use those people to get to you.
Yeah.
So just listen to God.
Those people might be in the church.
Yeah. And just listen to God because like, I don't know, like no one is ever going to be able to tell me like, hey, God spoke to me and said that like something like this isn't for you or you don't belong in this certain area. Well, just like you hear from God, I hear from God too. And I'm not going to take your word for it and then like say, well, I just guess I shouldn't pursue, a dream or something like that because someone else said they heard from God that wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. And it's like, because you don't know what the motive is behind that person either.
Could be a heart prophecy.
And you're probably not even, you possibly couldn't even be hearing from God and it could be the enemy. Right. And that's how the enemy's going to get to you too, because you think, well, this person that goes to my church and they seem so anointed and stuff like that. Well, they said this to me. So like, I'm going to believe them and I'm just going to take their word for it. No, talk to God yourself.
Talk to God, get that confirmation.
Yeah. Talk to God yourself.
So I feel
God doesn't just talk to our pastors and, people that are higher up. You can talk to God too. Sometimes we just forget to listen. We don't know how to shut up. We just make a list of requests and demands.
Yeah.
Open up that Bible. Let him talk to you.
Come on. He speaks.
He's available all the time and he's free. Like you don't have to pay for him, nothing. So I'm sure like, obviously if you like lean on people in your church that you trust or whatever, but don't always take whatever their word is 100%, because God will tell you.
We got to realize that these people are still human.
Yeah, we're all human.
We're all human. Like, don't get me wrong. Listen, I understand God's goal is that we be more like him. Mm-hmm. Be holy as I am holy. He calls us to be holy. He calls us to be sanctified, set apart from the world. He calls us to strive for his character, his identity, like who he is. Like he wants us to be in his image. Right. Again, he wants to conform us to the image of Christ. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't strive to that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't go after holiness. Like by all means, let's be holy. But can we remember that we're human?
Yeah.
We are human. That means if anybody comes into your church and they have tattoos or they're still going through their process, be human. Remember, they're human and we have to be human. Mm-hmm. Also, be holy, strive towards holiness and call them up to do the same. Let's stop judging. I understand Christians are out here like, gosh, bro, we feel like we have the most permission to judge each other because God's word says that we can. Like, no.
Taking scripture out of context and using it for your own advantage. Stop it.
We need to be holy as God is holy. We also need to remember that he made us human. Mm-hmm. And he made us human for a reason. Yeah. So we have to identify with both of these things and live the life that he's calling us to live and experience God in the individual way that he is allowing us to experience him and not invalidate somebody else's experience, but come together and learn from each other's experience so that we all as a collective have a better understanding of who God is and who we are in Christ.
Yeah. And we need to stop assuming that, like, say if someone comes to church and they're just in like in a bad mood, you can't sit there and assume like, oh, they're not a Christian, they're crabby or whatever.
No, they're just going through
Okay.
life, fam.
There's some things like you don't know everything. And
No.
like, and I also like just don't believe in putting people on a pedestal either. Like, obviously, I respect our pastors and stuff like that, but
Love
I'm
'em.
never going like, I think it's people need to be very careful about idolizing their pastors too, of putting them on a pedestal and like just taking their word for it. And I mean, I trust our pastors, you know, whatever.
Yeah, we have
But
very
like
healthy
you
pastors.
also need to talk to God too, because say if like you go to a new church or something and I don't know, like you don't know if you don't know that pastor, you don't know what their true intentions are either.
Yeah.
So there's people that twist the word and all that. And then like, you know, they're not the only ones that can talk to God. You can talk to God too.
Yeah. He tore the veil. He gave us all access to his presence.
Yeah. And I've like heard people like, I had a cousin that we thought that she was going to pass away after her C-section and stuff like that. And I remember getting a call from my grandma and she's like, God just told me that you got to take in one of those babies. And I said, well, God's not telling me that. So I'm not going to jump
Yeah.
in an emotional moment. And because you think you heard from God, because sometimes we mix up God's voice with our own voice.
Come on.
And it's really hard to kind of determine which voice it is sometimes. And that's why you shouldn't jump on a decision.
Yeah, because wanting a good
Pray
thing
about it.
Isn't necessarily bad, like, but is a good thing a God thing?
Yeah. And I was just like, well, God's not telling me that. And, you know, my cousin did survive and she's fine. But it's like when you're in that kind of emotional, kind of a heated thing. And I think sometimes people mistake their own emotions for, oh, God's saying this to me or whatever. Like, you just got to be careful about it and know which voice you're hearing. Is it your voice?
Right.
Is it God's voice? Does it line up with his word? And I mean, I know now, like if I would, I mean, I guess if it was in God's will, then he already has it figured out. I didn't need to know what was going to happen and I could be a little nervous or whatever. But it's like, if God's not telling me that, like, and if I would have done that, like it probably would have just like resulted in so many like,
oh, who knows what could have
disastrous
happened
ways because like I'm not living within his will. And it's like, even for my own life, you know, because I never confided in God of like making my own decisions. But now looking back, I'm like, maybe if I actually had a relationship with God and would have asked him what he wants me to do, some of the hurdles I went through, I mean, and it's not bad to go through hurdles, but there's some things like in my life that probably would have been a little bit easier.
Right.
Like I moved in with Keith when I was 18 or 19. And then a few years later, I got pregnant with Gwen. And then I got married. And then I was trying to get through school. And it was just so difficult. And I'm like, Asia, if you would have just like had a relationship with God, like God probably would have like, hey, get yourself established, get through school. And then, you know, you and Keith date and then get married and then have kids. So you're not like trying to raise kids and go to college at the same time and get yourself established while you're also raising children. Like it just was, everything was just so backwards. But it was just because like I just wanted to do it my way on whatever my emotions were. Like, but I mean, sometimes we make things so much harder on ourselves.
Right.
Because we think we know the better way and we have trouble trusting, putting things in God's hands and just letting him handle it.
Oh, come on.
Because we want it to happen in the time we want it to happen. And God's always on time.
Oh, always. And we shouldn't invalidate not invalidate, but we shouldn't sit there and look at our past and wish it was another way. All because of what we know now.
Yeah.
Because God still took that.
Yeah.
And did this thing. Like, if you didn't go through everything that you went through, I don't think you'd be sitting on the couch.
Right.
I don't think you'd be able to relate to the people who you are speaking to right now.
Yeah, that's true.
And what God has done with your life. And oh my goodness, like, girl.
I mean, even like I had a miscarriage November 25th of this year. And at first it was kind of hard, but this is how I knew that I was growing closer to Christ and my faith just improved, because I was praying for a few months because I was indecisive, and I am terrible at making decisions anyway. Like, I don't know what's best for my life. I've done everything backwards now. Like, heck, I don't know. One day I want a baby, and the other day I'm like, heck no. So it's like, God, this is all you.
Yeah.
If you want me to have another baby, you make it happen. If it's not within your will, then please do not let it happen. And what I actually meant was like, don't let me get pregnant or whatever. But he did things the way that he did it. And this is probably going to be a touchy subject for some people, and some people don't want to hear it. And I understand it from a viewpoint of like before I got closer with Christ.
Right.
Like, so I get it why people would feel the way that they do. But I was upset at the time on the day it was happening because I was on call for work.
Yep.
So like I'm with a patient when this is happening. And so I ended up having to like leave that patient when I was done, go home, take care of myself, and then return back to work. And here I am comforting people when I'm like, I feel like I'm falling apart right now. And I don't like, I had a million emotions. And like after that weekend, then I was like, fine. I just needed like time to like process it, because in my life previously, like I had always just shoved down my feelings and never processed things. And I did not want to do it this time. I was like, no, I don't want to sit here and be 10 years from now crying about a miscarriage that I had. Like, I'm always going to think about, you know, what would that child be like or whatever. But I had to remember, and God reminded me what I prayed for. And I had to just be confident and trust that God knows what he's doing.
Amen.
There's a reason that I had a miscarriage. And I mean, like, I guess if you got medical about it, of like, oh, your hormones and all that, but like, I trust that that was God's answer to me. And I'm not going to sit around and think of like this miscarriage and all the negative parts of like, oh, well, you know, God took this baby from me or whatever. Cause some people, when they're grieving, that's how they start looking at things. And instead, I decided to thank him and praise him for the children that I do have. And I said, God, I don't understand why I had a miscarriage, but I trust you and thank you for protecting me from whatever you're protecting me from, or, you know, preventing something from happening. Like, I don't know, like Keith and I were even talking about, like, what happens if that child would have been extremely sick or something and wasn't going to make it after birth? And then that would have hurt even more, because I just carried that baby that whole time and gave birth and everything. Or, you know, like, I mean, I'm just like coming up with stuff. Like like what happens if something would have happened during delivery and I would have not made it or something, and I need to be here to take care of the kids that I have. God so knows. It's like, I don't know. And I know that he knows, and that's okay with me. And that's enough. And I get it that people process things differently. And if I didn't have a relationship with God, I don't think I would have gotten over, I wouldn't say over it, but
you wouldn't have been able
I wouldn't
to
have been content with what happened. I would have stewed on it and been upset and probably got super depressed and all this stuff, and just been like mad and just like felt defeated or whatever. But it's like, God has a purpose. And I have seen people in my life that, you know, for an example, somebody that I know that like they had experienced a miscarriage, but their relationship was a mess, and, you know, they're not married and they can barely take care of themselves or anything like that. So then they were upset. And I didn't say this to them, obviously, because, you know, I'm sensitive to other people's feelings, and they're not Christians. So I'm like, they're going to take this totally the wrong way, and they're not in a position to hear it. But it's like, okay, God knows, like, what, even if that they are meant for each other, like, they're not in a place that they probably should bring another child into it or something. Like, there's a reason God did not allow that baby to continue to grow and be born and live. And, you know, then on their own, try to have another baby, and, you know, that baby makes it, but then like the entire pregnancy and stuff is just like a whole mess, and like the relationship's all torn apart.
When we try to do it in our own power, it ends up being just a mess.
Yes, and then like now you bring a child into like such a chaotic situation.
When that wasn't God's plan.
And that wasn't God's plan, and God already tried to tell you that, but you didn't want to listen because you want to do things your way.
Oh yeah, because God's ways are not our ways, and when we don't like God's way, or we don't even acknowledge God's way, we try to do things in our own way. In our own power, and it fails.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
Or we're impatient and we don't want to wait on God. Like, we don't want to wait on him to tell us whether or not we should take a job, or marry somebody or have kids or whatever. And like, we have to ask God about all those things.
We do.
And people don't like think about it. Like, I know there's some people that, and I love them dearly, and it kind of cracks me up of like, God, should I cut my hair? Should I paint my nails? I'm like, okay, I don't think God cares
pray
that
about
much.
Everything.
I'm like, I get it, but like, I don't know. Like, I guess as far as like, oh God, should I cut my hair? Like, did I ask God before I cut my hair? No, I was just like, just cut it off. Because I'm like, God doesn't care about my hair. I believe like what is in my heart and how I treat people and how I live my life.
Yep.
But some people do take things a little literally, and you know, whatever floats your boat, I guess.
God
love them. I'm just like, but for me, if I want to cut my hair off, I'm just going to cut it off. It's fine. You know, if I were to ever get like another tattoo or something, that's different because now I have a relationship with Christ and I'm, you know, whatever, something like that. But like your hair is going to grow back. And if it doesn't, then I shall not have no hair. I guess.
Shall not have no hair. Now we're hitting the
King James.
King James. All right, sister, you're about to get me on a whole nother rant, and because I already know we could go for hours. But we do have something later to do today, and I want to be a good steward of your time.
Yeah,
and
fine.
I'm hoping, can I just ask you, will you come back into the real room?
Absolutely.
Like,
yes.
Girl,
please.
We were sitting here before this whole thing.
I love this.
A little nervous, like what's going to happen, and then boom.
I couldn't even sleep last night. I was just like, I'm so nervous, and I have problems sleeping sometimes anyway.
Don't take an Ambien. No Ambien.
No. But yes, you can have me back anytime, and I will make time because I have loved this. And like
Pauline's over there just chilling. She was like, "This is awesome." I could tell she's enjoying this.
I love this.
All right, Asia, my sister, you have blessed my whole soul today because this was amazing. I know more about you, and I love you.
I love you.
I love your story. I love what God's done in your life.
I love sharing it too, because I'm just like, at that time, it's like, I don't know why I'm going through this. And I still, some things don't know. But if I could help somebody, I don't care if it was like the recent thing, like a miscarriage or someone's facing abuse or been raped or whatever.
Right.
Like, hey, I don't care. I'm not any like special, like don't idolize me like I'm a celebrity or like I don't want to be idolized either. But it's like, if that can give you hope of like, okay, she went through this and this has happened to her, but this is what God has done for her. He will do the same for you. There's nothing super special about me that he chose me and isn't going to choose somebody else.
Amen.
Okay? Like I used to go around not even believing in him.
Did you hear that? If he can do it for me, he can do it for you.
Yeah, you got to let him.
We got to
take our hands off of our situation.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we hinder ourselves because we don't want to hand things over. And we like, nope, I can't let him handle it. Yeah. You just let him handle it.
Amen. All right, girl. Well, I'm definitely going to have you back in the real room.
Yes, I'll be looking forward to it. Seriously.
All right, everyone. Yeah, that was amazing. And you know me, dude, I'm still trying to learn how to do this whole thing. So, yeah, if you stepped in the real room with us today and you got real with us, thank you. Thank you. I hope that you, whoever's watching, whoever's listening, I hope that you have enjoyed our time with Asia. And I pray that it finds you. I pray that you have been able to relate to this. I hope that it educated you. I hope that you enjoyed her authenticity. Thank you for your authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I pray that you feel the love of God, because this has just been an amazing time in the real room. So thank you, every single person who stepped in and got real with us today. And until next week, keep it real.